Chapter 2953. Swoosh. Ling Xiao basically used a teleportation secret technique in an instant, directly teleporting tens of thousands of meters away. He appeared in front of Shi Qingyi in an extremely strange manner. At the same time, Ling Xiao dodged Shi Wuji's infinite sword qi. Freeze! Ling Xiao uttered an ancient syllable. Boom! A vast power of time exploded from his body. It was as if the world had frozen in an instant. The mysterious power of time enveloped Shi Qingyi and stopped in an instant. This was the power of the time cycle. Ling Xiao did not hesitate to expose part of his strength, and chose to free Shi Qingyi with the Time Sutra. Shi Qingyi's cultivation was originally lower than Ling Xiao's, so she could not escape from the time-stop domain. She felt that she had lost all feeling in her body and could not move. However, her mind did not stop. Therefore, she watched as Ling Xiao took the Destruction Immortal Talisman from her hand. She did not have time to activate the Destruction Immortal Talisman. No! Shi Wuji let out an incomparably shrill roar filled with anger and disbelief. Originally, Shi Wuji planned to control the infinite sword qi to delay Ling Xiao, Jie Wushuang and Prince Heiyun. Then he would give Shi Qingyi time to activate the Destruction Immortal Talisman, and completely bury the three of them in one fell swoop. However, he did not expect Ling Xiao's strength to be so terrifying. Not only did he appear in front of Shi Qingyi like a ghost, he even snatched the Destruction Immortal Talisman from Shi Qingyi. Shi Wuji did not have time to help at all. He could only watch as the Destruction Immortal Talisman fell into Ling Xiao's hand. This was their trump card and trump card, the Destruction Immortal Talisman that could kill an immortal monarch. In an instant, Shi Wuji hated Ling Xiao to the extreme. All right. Prince Lei Ling, kill them. Jie Wushuang's eyes revealed an inexplicably surprised expression. Then she said decisively. When Shi Qingyi took out the Destruction Immortal Talisman, she was already in despair. She naturally knew the Shi family's Destruction Immortal Talisman. It was a trump card that could kill an immortal monarch. Although she also had the Jie family's powerful trump card, it could not block the Destruction Immortal Talisman. She almost thought that the three of them would die here. However, she did not expect Ling Xiao to snatch the Destruction Immortal Talisman at the critical moment. The Xie family and the Shi family were already mortal enemies. At this point, the two families had completely shed all pretense of cordiality. There was no room for negotiation. So Xie Wushuang directly gave up refining the array core now and rushed towards Shi Wuji. Ling Xiao's eyes flashed. Without the slightest hesitation, he struck out with his palm. Bang! He slapped the top of Shi Qingyi's head, and the terrifying power of heavenly retribution rushed into Shi Qingyi's sea of consciousness, smashing her primordial spirit into smithereens. Shi Qingyi's eyes were devouring. His face was filled with terror. He didn't even have a chance to fight back until he died. The divine light in his eyes dimmed, and he directly died, ruthlessly destroying a flower. Ling Xiao didn't hesitate at all and killed Shi Qingyi. At this point, Ling Xiao knew that the war between the Xie and Shi families had officially started, so he decided to be ruthless. Second sister. Second sister. Shi Wuji and Shi Tianying roared furiously. Their voices were extremely mournful and filled with bone-deep hatred. Right in front of their eyes, Ling Xiao killed Shi Qingyi. Their eyes were about to pop out of their sockets, and their hearts were filled with extreme hatred. Boom! Ling Xiao's eyes were cold. Without the slightest hesitation, his figure flashed and appeared in front of Shi Tianying. He punched out in the air, and an unparalleled fist print directly landed on Shi Tianying's chest. Lei Ling! Shi Tianying's eyes instantly bulged out, and blood flowed out of her orifices. With bone-deep hatred, she spat out blood from her mouth. She only had time to spit out a few syllables before her entire body exploded and died. In the void, blood rained down. Shi Tianying was blasted apart by Ling Xiao's punch. In the blink of an eye, the three siblings of the Shi family, Shi Qingyi and Shi Tianying, had all died in Ling Xiao's hands. Only Shi Wuji was left. Those who kill will be killed by others. Ling Xiao said indifferently, and his gaze landed on Shi Wuji. At this moment, outside the array space, everyone was stunned. All of this happened too quickly, so quickly that no one had time to react. In the beginning, Shi Wuji had set up the limitless sword array, and led Shi Qingyi and Shi Tianying to kill Ling Xiao and steal his treasures. However, they did not expect Ling Xiao to break out of the encirclement and kill Shi Qingyi and Shi Tianying in the blink of an eye. Lei Ling, you're courting death. You'll pay with your life for killing the disciples of the all-Kate immortal sect. Two incomparably cold voices exploded in the void. One contained monstrous hatred, and the other contained endless killing intent. They were the head of the Shi family, Shi Pujuan, and the Dubhe immortal lord. Shi Wuji, Shi Qingyi, and Shi Tianying were the children of Shi Pujuan. Shi Qingyi was a disciple of the all-Kate immortal sect, and the niece of the Dubhe immortal lord. She was also one of the most important disciples of the all-Kate immortal sect. Originally, everything was under their control. After all, Shi Wuji and the other two had the limitless sword array and the destruction immortal talisman. Especially the destruction immortal talisman, it was a supreme treasure that could kill an immortal lord. In their opinion, the array core would definitely fall into Shi Wuji's hands. However, they did not expect Ling Xiao to be so ruthless. In an instant, he had killed Shi Qingyi and Shi Tianying. They did not even have the chance to stop him. Rumble. Terrifying immortal light rose around Shi Pujuan, and the Dubhe immortal lord. Emperor's aura filled the air. It was the aura of the great Tao origin. It seemed to be able to shatter the void and destroy everything. The two high immortals had gone mad. They actually couldn't help but directly rush over from the void, wanting to kill their way into the array space and kill Ling Xiao. Shi Pujuan, do you want to start a war? Jian Yexing's body flashed, and he blocked Shi Pujuan's path and said flatly, Dubhe immortal lord, this is a matter of the ancient god cult. Does the all-Kate immortal sect have to get involved in this? Madame Fuyao also blocked the Dubhe immortal lord and said coldly, get out of my way. Those who block me will die. Jian Yexing, the war has begun. From today onwards, the Shi family will forsake the darkness and join the light. We will betray the Cthulhuism sect. Everyone has the right to kill the Jia family for colluding with the Cthulhuism sect. Shi Pujuan's eyes were filled with murderous intent as he said coldly, Madame Fuyao, Lei Ling killed the disciples of the all-Kate immortal sect. He must die. Are you going to protect him? The Dubhe immortal lord said coldly, what a good excuse. Let's cut the crap. Since the all-Kate immortal sect wants to fight, the ancient god cult will naturally accompany you. Madame Fuyao laughed loudly, and her eyes were filled with mockery. Rumble. She was surrounded by dazzling divine clouds, and exuded an ancient aura. She was ethereal and stood opposite the Dubhe immortal lord from afar. She was not at a disadvantage at all. In that case, let me have a taste of Madame's heaven and earth reversal divine technique. The Dubhe immortal lord said flatly. Blazing starlight bloomed around him. In an instant he was connected to the 9 heavens and earth. Chapter 2954. Xia family and Shi family had completely fallen out with each other. Previously, they pretended to be polite because they wanted to win the stone dissecting ceremony and control the immortal coalescence emperor formation in immortal ancient city. But now, seeing that Ling Xiao and Xia Wushuang had obtained the core of the formation, Shi family could no longer hold back. If Xia family refined the core of the formation and controlled the immortal coalescence emperor formation, Shi family would be annihilated. Elders of Shi family, listen to my order. Quickly enter the space of the formation. Kill Lei Ling and Xia Wushuang, and snatch the core of the formation. Shi Pujuan roared. His voice was like a thunderclap that exploded in the void. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. As soon as he finished speaking, a dozen figures with powerful auras flew out from the Shi family's camp and rushed towards the formation space. They were a dozen immortal reverends, each with an unfathomable aura. They were the elders of Shi family. Elders of Xia family, listen to my order. Quickly enter the space of the formation, protect Lei Ling and Xia Wushuang, and kill Shi Wuji. Xia Yexing also ordered in a deep voice. The elders of Xia family also turned into streams of light and rushed into the space of the formation. Both Xia family and Shi family knew that they couldn't let the other party refine the core of the formation. This way they could maintain a stalemate. Otherwise, if one party refined the core of the formation, the situation would be reversed instantly. Rumble. Xie family and Shi family sent out a dozen immortal reverends, each with a terrifying aura, causing the void around to shake violently. Almost as soon as they entered the space of the formation, they began to fight. When immortal reverends fought, they could control the laws of heaven and earth, comprehending the power of the great Tao origin. Their attacks were extremely terrifying. Kill. In the void, Madame Fuyao and Tian Shu Immortal Lord faced each other from a distance. Suddenly, Tian Shu Immortal Lord's eyes flashed with killing intent. He roared and charged towards Madame Fuyao. Both of them were peerless experts in the immortal monarch realm. The moment they clashed, a destructive force exploded, causing the entire immortal ancient city to shake violently. Xie family and Shi family are fighting. Those who didn't know the inside story were shocked, their eyes filled with disbelief. It seems like Xie family and Shi family have shed all pretenses of cordiality. Legend has it that Shi family betrayed Old God sect and wanted to rely on Al-Qaeda Immortal sect. It seems like it's true. This is not a battle between Shi family and Xie family's God sect, but Al-Qaeda Immortal sect, God Divine sect and Immortal sect. Immortal Ancient Cities sects and Immortal Ancient City Immortal sect. Out family Immortal was Immortal sect. Its Xie family Immortal sect is immortal. Isn't that so? Xie. B. Xie sect imam sect Xie. Although they were afraid of being affected by the battle and retreated, they did not leave the immortal ancient city. After all, although no one had refined the core of the immortal ancient city and controlled the immortal coalescence emperor formation, the immortal coalescence emperor formation could protect the entire immortal ancient city. Therefore, it was the safest place for them to stay. Everyone looked at the battle between Xie family and Shi family with different expressions. They were all curious about who would win this battle. In addition to the celestial venerables, the Xie clan and the Shi clan each sent out 3 celestial monarchs. With Xie Miexing and Shi Pejuan as the leaders, a fierce battle broke out. Although the Xie family was slightly weaker than the Shi family, they were both stone-cutting families after all. The accumulation of resources over countless years was also incomparably strong, so the difference was not big. Once a war broke out, it would be a life-and-death battle. It was actually soldier against soldier, general against general, maintaining an incomparably ingenious balance. In the void, no one could see the figures of Madame Fuyao and Dubhe Immortal Monarch. They could only see 2 dazzling balls of light colliding with each other. Every blow exploded with terrifying energy waves. Blazing divine light gushed out in all directions, causing people's hearts to palpitate. Within the formation space, Ling Xiao, Xie Wushuang, and the many elders of the Shi family, led by Shi Wuji, began to fight. Originally, Ling Xiao had planned to attack and kill Shi Wuji as well. However, Shi Wuji had sensed the danger and had actually self-destructed 3 of his everlasting swords to block Soaring Cloud. Then, he quickly retreated back into the protection of the 10 or so elders. Xie Wushuang, hand over the core of the formation, kill Lei Ling and surrender with Xie family. I can spare your life. Otherwise, Xie family will be wiped out completely today. Shi Wuji stared at Xie Wushuang and said coldly. His eyes were filled with cold killing intent. Shi Wuji, you're really boasting shamelessly. Today Xie family will fight to the death. The one who will be wiped out is your Shi family. Xie Wushuang said coldly. Fairy Wushuang, you refined the core of the formation. Let the elders of Shi family protect you. Leave Shi Wuji and Shi family to me. Ling Xiao said indifferently. A strong fighting intent surged in his eyes. Although Xie family and Shi family were in a stalemate now, as long as Xie Wushuang refined the core of the formation and gained control of the immortal unification emperor array, the balance would be broken instantly. Therefore, Xie Wushuang was the focus of everyone. Xie family wanted to protect Xie Wushuang and refine the core of the formation as soon as possible. However, Shi family would not allow this to happen. Shi Wuji, Shi Qingyi and Shi Tianying are already dead. I'll send you to reunite with them now. Ling Xiao said indifferently, facing Shi Wuji and the dozen immortal venerables of Shi family alone. Arrogant. Kill him. A cold light flashed in Shi Wuji's eyes. In an instant he pounced towards Ling Xiao. Rumble. More than a dozen immortal venerables struck at the same time. The vast force caused the surrounding void to tremble violently. Immortal light surged as if it could shatter everything. Under the leadership of Shi Wuji, the dozen immortal venerables of Shi family formed an incomparably powerful battle formation, sharing their strength. With Shi Wuji as the core of the formation, Shi Wuji's chi skyrocketed rapidly, exuding an incomparably dangerous wave of energy. Cut! Shi Wuji slashed down with his palm. It was like 100 million feet long flaming blade light that broke through layers of void. It was extremely terrifying and locked onto Ling Xiao, trying to kill him. Chapter 2955. Boom. Ling Xiao's eyes flashed. Without dodging, he threw out a punch. Blazing lightning exploded all of a sudden. Purple lightning rose around Ling Xiao's body. A mysterious heavenly might bloomed, as if it could destroy everything. His fist contained the power of extreme yang, and was extremely ferocious. In an instant, it collided with the flaming saber light. Kacha! A muffled sound came from the void, and it began to distort violently. The flaming saber light actually exploded in an instant. Ling Xiao took a step forward, instantly crossing 10,000 zhang of void. His body exuded a vast heavenly might, and he threw out another punch. This was purely the strength of his physical body. Ling Xiao didn't use any powerful divine ability. He had Lei Ling as his disguise. Therefore, even if he unleashed the strength of his physical body, ordinary people wouldn't be able to see through him. However, he couldn't use the divine ability and secret arts of the divine world. Otherwise, he would be easily discovered by the experts of the immortal world. However, just the strength of his physical body was enough. Ling Xiao faced Shi Wuji and a dozen immortal venerables alone without the slightest fear. His eyes were filled with incomparably powerful battle intent. Kacha! Ling Xiao threw out an unparalleled punch, causing the surrounding void to tremble violently. Although the immortal venerables of Shi family in front of him had gathered their strength together, their bodies still trembled when they were hit by Ling Xiao's punch. They couldn't help but spurt out a mouthful of blood. Several of them were sent flying. The formation of the battle formation was directly broken by Ling Xiao. This was absolute strength. Ling Xiao's primordial immortal body was incomparably terrifying. Even an ordinary immortal monarch expert would find it difficult to withstand a punch from him. Although there were a dozen immortal venerables here, they still weren't Ling Xiao's match. Hong Long Long. Ling Xiao's figure was like a purple lightning. His punch was like a dragon, and a vast dragon roar erupted from his body, causing the surrounding void to tremble. He was like a tiger that had entered a flock of sheep, fighting fiercely with Shi Wuji and the dozen immortal venerables of Shi family. Each of his attacks could destroy the heavens and earth, causing the immortal venerables of Shi family to tremble and be sent flying. No one was a match for his punch. Even Shi Wuji was no exception. Damn it! How can he be so strong? Shi Wuji's eyes were filled with disbelief. When did such a heaven-defying monster appear in the immortal world? Shi Wuji was somewhat famous in the immortal world. Together with Xie Wushuang, they were known as the peerless duo of the immortal ancient city. In the immortal world, they were kings of their generation. However, in front of Ling Xiao, he even began to doubt himself. Ling Xiao had crushed his self-esteem and the dozen or so immortal venerable elders of the Shi family with his cultivation of the same realm. Shi Wuji even felt that Ling Xiao's terrifying combat strength was probably only comparable to those high and mighty geniuses of the celestial world. While Ling Xiao was fighting the numerous immortal venerables of Shi family, Jie Wushuang had also completed the antidote stone. From the immortal stone, she took out a bead that was shrouded in black and white light. It looked mysterious and ancient, flowing with resplendent immortal light. This was the core of the immortal coalescence Emperor array. When the black and white bead appeared in the void, the surroundings trembled. Jie Wushuang held the black and white bead and felt that the array formation space around him had become incomparably intimate. It was as if she could influence the surrounding space through this black and white bead. Refine. Jie Wushuang sat cross-legged with her 5 hearts facing the sky. The black and white bead floated in front of her. Dazzling light bloomed from between her eyebrows. The force of her primordial spirit was constantly surging, trying to refine the black and white bead completely. The dozen or so immortal venerable elders of Jie family were guarding Jie Wushuang with incomparable vigilance, as if someone was about to launch a sneak attack. On the other side, Shi Wuji and the dozen or so immortal venerable elders of Shi family were all retreating while coughing out blood. They were all suppressed by Ling Xiao, as if they couldn't break through Ling Xiao's blockade and seize the core of the array formation. It seemed like it wouldn't take long for Jie Wushuang to completely refine the core of the array formation. No. Shi family attaches great importance to the core of the array formation. They even didn't hesitate to fall out with Jie family. How could they be willing to let Jie Wushuang refine the core of the array formation? They must have a backup plan. Ling Xiao's eyes flickered as he felt that something was wrong. But where was the backup plan of Shi family? Ling Xiao couldn't figure it out. After all, Jie Wushuang was surrounded by a dozen or so immortal venerable elders. It was impossible for an ordinary person to break through their blockade and seize the core of the array formation. Even if an immortal monarch expert came, the dozen or so immortal venerables would be able to hold on for a while. Unless, Ling Xiao's body trembled as he suddenly thought of something. His gaze fell on the dozen or so immortal venerable elders of Jie family. Jie Wushuang, be careful of the immortal venerable elders of Jie family. Ling Xiao suddenly bellowed. He finally knew what was wrong. Shi Wuji and the dozen or so elders of Shi family were too calm, as if they weren't worried about Jie Wushuang refining the core of the array formation. Unless Shi family was sure that Jie Wushuang couldn't refine the core of the array formation. A spy. Among the dozen or so immortal venerable elders of Jie family, there was a spy of Shi family. This was Ling Xiao's first reaction. Therefore, he immediately reminded Jie Wushuang and leaped across the sky, giving up on continuing the battle with Shi Wuji and the others. But it was still too late. Rumble. Just as Ling Xiao's voice fell, the three immortal venerable elders of Jie family behind Jie Wushuang revealed incomparably ferocious killing intent on their faces. Their terrifying palm print seemed to be able to shatter everything as it directly imprinted on Jie Wushuang's back. Boom. Jie Wushuang's body bloomed with dazzling light. That was the power of a defensive immortal weapon. Jie Wushuang's dress was an incomparably powerful defensive immortal weapon. After encountering a sneak attack, it automatically activated its defensive power to resist the attack of the three immortal venerables. However, the long-awaited attack of the three celestial venerable elders was not something a mere defensive celestial artifact could withstand. Jie Wushuang's body shook violently as he spat out a mouthful of blood. His face instantly became extremely pale. The black and white bead at the core of the array formation was also spinning, and was instantly caught in the palm of one of the immortal venerable elders. How dare you? Traitor! How dare you betray Jie family? Shameless villain! Leave the core of the array formation behind. Kill them. At this moment, the dozen immortal venerable elders of Jie family finally reacted. Each of them was infuriated. Their eyes were filled with flames of fury as they leaped across the sky and charged towards the three immortal venerable elders. They had never thought that there would be a spy among the elders of Jie family. Jie Wushuang was caught off guard and suffered heavy injuries. Not only was the refinement of the core interrupted, it was also snatched away by the three traitors. Retreat. After obtaining the core of the array formation, the three immortal venerable elders no longer lingered in the battle. They instantly soared into the sky and fled frantically towards the distance. At this moment, Shi Wuji and the dozen immortal venerable elders of Shi family had a crazed look in their eyes as they pounced towards Ling Xiao without fear of death, blocking him from rescuing Jie Wushuang. The situation took a turn for the worse. Chapter 2956. Rumble. The dozen immortal venerable elders of Shi family exuded a terrifying aura. Their immortal light was dazzling, causing the surrounding void to tremble violently. Their glabella glowed and flames rose from their bodies. Their eyes were filled with madness. Their aura skyrocketed as they surrounded Ling Xiao fearlessly. They all knew how powerful Ling Xiao was. He was so powerful that more than a dozen immortal venerables were no match for him. However, the core of the formation was too important. No matter what, it couldn't fall into the hands of Jie family. Therefore, for the sake of the core, They launched a suicidal attack without hesitation. Boom, boom, boom. The dozen immortal venerables chose to self-detonate, each of them bursting into dazzling light. Then, like the sun, they exploded in the void. In order to stop Ling Xiao, they were willing to pay any price. Ling Xiao originally wanted to chase after the 3 traitorous elders of Shi family, but he didn't expect the people of Shi family to be so crazy. Even though Ling Xiao wanted to use a teleportation secret technique to distance himself, he couldn't stop the self-detonation of an immortal venerable. Almost instantly, he was engulfed by the twisting explosion. Among the dozen immortal venerable experts, other than a few immortal venerable elders who were protecting Shi Wuji, there were 9 immortal venerable elders who chose to self-detonate. Lei Ling should be dead, right? Shi Wuji, who was under the protection of a few immortal venerable elders, said fearfully as he watched the scene of the 9 immortal venerables exploding. He was completely afraid of Lei Ling. Shi Wuji was also a genius in the immortal world, but after the battle with Ling Xiao, he was almost beaten to the point of doubting his life. Lei Ling was too strong. It was an invincible strength. Lei Ling had even left a shadow in Shi Wuji's heart. However, with 9 immortal venerable elders self-detonating at the same time, Lei Ling should be dead for sure, right? It should be. Shi Wuji told himself in his heart. At the same time, his heart was bleeding. Those were 9 immortal venerable elders. Even with Shi family's strong foundation, it wasn't easy to cultivate 9 immortal venerable elders. This was the foundation of Shi family, and it had to be destroyed because of Ling Xiao. Young master, this is the core of the formation. The 3 defected immortal venerable elders of Shi family flew to Shi Wuji's side and respectfully handed the black and white bead to him. You guys have done well. Thank you for your hard work. Shi Wuji suppressed the thoughts in his heart, and a trace of excitement appeared in his eyes. He took a deep breath and took the black and white bead. This was the core of the Immortal Coalescence Emperor Array. As long as he refined it, he would be able to completely control the Immortal Coalescence Emperor Array. Protect me. Don't let anyone disturb me. Shi Wuji's eyes flashed. He immediately sat down with his legs crossed. Blazing immortal light rose around him as he began to refine the core of the formation. The remaining 6 immortal venerables of Shi family and the 3 immortal venerables of Jie family surrounded Shi Wuji, looking around vigilantly. They were at the edge of the formation space. If it wasn't for the fact that refining the core of the formation had to be done here in order to control the Immortal Coalescence Emperor Array, they would have chosen to leave the formation space long ago. Even so, they were incomparably vigilant. After all, they didn't know whether Lei Ling was dead or alive. Although Jie Wushuang of Jie family was severely injured, the elders of Jie family still had their full strength. If a battle really broke out, it would probably be a fierce one. Rumble. The formation shook violently, causing the surrounding space to tremble. The scorching light in the space gradually receded, and the storm from the explosion gradually dispersed, revealing the scene within. What? The immortal venerable elders of Shi family trembled. Their pupils constricted, revealing an incomparably horrified expression. Boom, boom, boom. The void trembled violently. A glowing figure walked out of the divine light storm. His whole body was shrouded in immortal light, and his qi was powerful and unfathomable. It was Ling Xiao. His robe was whiter than snow, his black hair fluttered in the wind, and his eyes were dazzling. There were terrifying light beams shooting out from his eyes, as if he wasn't injured at all. Shi family? Since you all want to die so much, then all of you can die. And I hate traitors the most. As members of Jie family, you all actually defected to Shi family. This is unforgivable. On behalf of Jie Wushuang, I sentence you all to death. Ling Zhao's voice was like blazing thunder. His body exuded a vast qi, as if it could push the sun, the moon, and the stars. The heavenly might was vast and unfathomable. Protect the young master. The 9 immortal venerables beside Shi Wuji looked incomparably solemn. Terrifying qi rose from their bodies and formed a powerful battle formation, protecting Shi Wuji in the middle. Ling Xiao was too powerful. Even the self-destruction of 9 immortal venerables didn't hurt him at all. This kind of strength made them feel a little desperate. Kill. Ling Xiao roared as he threw a punch at the Shi family members. As long as he killed the people of Shi family, including Shi Wuji, no one would be able to stop Jie Wushuang from refining the core of the formation. At this moment, although the elders of Jie family were incomparably furious, they couldn't participate in the battle because Jie Wushuang was severely injured. They had to protect her. After being attacked by 3 immortal venerables, Jie Wushuang's physical body and primordial spirit were on the verge of shattering. Her face was incomparably pale. She sat cross-legged in the void, and consumed a healing immortal pill to heal her injuries. Mr. Lei Ling, please avenge our miss. Mr. Lei Ling, kill the 3 traitors. Everyone has the right to kill those who betray the family. Mr. Lei Ling, from today onwards, Jie family will be at odds with Shi family and Alcade Immortal Sect. The immortal venerables and elders of Jie family shouted one after another. Their eyes were filled with flames of anger. Ling Xiao's eyes were cold. His attack was as fast as lightning, like a tiger roaring in the forest, as he charged towards the 9 immortal venerables. It wasn't that he wasn't injured just now. Although Ling Xiao's primordial immortal body was incomparably powerful, the self-destruction of immortal venerables was comparable to the all-out attack of an immortal monarch expert. Moreover, the self-destruction of 9 immortal venerables had caused Ling Xiao quite a lot of injuries. Protect the mister. The 9 immortal venerables roared. Their eyes were filled with incomparable determination as they pounced towards Ling Xiao. How dare you? At this moment, a clap of thunder exploded in the void. Rumble. The space of the formation was torn apart. An elder with white hair and beard came out of the void, exuding a monstrous and bold chi fluctuation. It was filled with a powerful emperor's aura. His eyes were like lightning, and the chi around him was unfathomable. It was as if he was stepping on the moonlight. His robe fluttered in the wind, giving him a celestial demeanor and extraordinary appearance. As soon as he appeared in the space of the formation, the eyes of the immortal venerables and elders of Shi family were filled with incomparable surprise. 3rd Sect Master. Chapter 2957. Greetings, Supreme Elder. The immortal reverend elders of Shi family bowed respectfully. He was an immortal monarch expert. He was the supreme elder of Shi family, Shi Qingquan. He had been cultivating in seclusion and his strength was unfathomable. This time, he had also appeared when Shi family and Jie family started a war. However, he didn't participate in the war outside. Instead, he tore open the array space and entered to protect Shi Wuji. You all protect Wuji. I'll kill this shameless thief. Shi Qingquan said coldly. Yes. The immortal reverend elders of Shi family retreated and heaved a sigh of relief. With the arrival of the supreme elder, it seemed like Lei Ling was going to die. Shi Qingquan was a genuine immortal monarch expert. He was extremely powerful and had broken through to the immortal monarch realm hundreds of thousands of years ago. Rumble. Facing Ling Xiao's punch, Shi Qingquan struck out with his palm. Dazzling immortal light gathered and collided with Ling Xiao's punch. The void shook violently and a loud boom sounded. Ling Xiao and Shi Qingquan both trembled and retreated at the same time. Immortal monarch? He should be a 3rd heaven immortal monarch expert. Ling Xiao's eyes flashed and revealed a solemn expression. Immortal monarchs were also known as emperors in the divine world. They had gathered emperor's aura and comprehended the origin of great Tao. They were extremely powerful and were supreme existences that had touched the emperor realm. If it was a 1st heaven immortal monarch expert, Ling Xiao was confident that he could defeat or even kill him. However, experts at the 2nd and 3rd heavenly layers of the high immortal realm had already condensed their source bodies. Their physical bodies were extremely powerful, and their source energy was endless. They were far from what the 1st heavenly layer of the high immortal realm could compare to. Even Ling Xiao could feel the immense pressure. The old man in front of him was extremely powerful. At this moment, Ling Xiao realized that the situation wasn't right. Outside the array space, the experts of Old God Cult and Jie family were all at a disadvantage. Jie family's strength wasn't as strong as Shi family. However, they were still on par with Shi family in a life and death battle. Most importantly, Alcade Immortal Sect seemed to be prepared. Other than Dubhe Immortal Monarch, there were 3 other immortal monarchs. As for Old God Cult, there was only Madame Fuyao and another immortal monarch elder. Old God Cult was at a disadvantage while Alcade Immortal Sect was getting stronger and stronger. Immortal Monarch Sect had suppressed the ancient God Cult and Jia family. Now Ling Xiao had been obstructed by Shi Qingchuan, and Shi Wuji was still refining the array formation core. Once Shi Wuji refined the array formation core, he would be able to borrow the power of the Immortal Coalescence Emperor Array and wipe out the entire Xie family and Old God Cult. He had to quickly defeat Shi Qingchuan and snatch the core of the array. Ling Zhao's eyes revealed a trace of cold killing intent. Kid, you're the one who defeated Fearless? This old man will peel off your skin, pull out your tendons, and refine your primordial spirit. I'll see what kind of person you are. Shi Qingchuan stared at Ling Xiao and said coldly. His eyes were filled with cold killing intent. Ling Xiao roared. Blazing celestial light rose from his body, and he charged toward Shi Qingchuan through the air. Rumble. Ling Xiao was surrounded by a terrifying murderous aura, causing the space around him to tremble violently. He took to the air and attacked. It was as if he had transformed into a peerless killing god, like a demon who had slaughtered billions of lives. His aura was extremely terrifying. Great Culling Immortal Art. Ling Xiao directly used the Supreme Immortal Technique. Because it was the Great Immortal Culling Art that had been passed down from the Imperial Jade Palace, Ling Xiao directly possessed the Great Immortal Culling Art at the Great Perfection Realm. The Great Culling Immortal Lord used the Great Culling Immortal Art to dominate the world. Countless immortal monarchs died in his hands. He was known as a peerless immortal lord. Although Ling Xiao didn't have the Great Culling Immortal Lord's cultivation, he had a strong foundation. Shi Qingchuan was shocked when he used the Great Culling Immortal Art. What immortal art is this? How can it contain such a strong murderous origin? Shi Qingchuan retreated quickly. His eyes were full of shock. He knew that this was definitely a supreme immortal art created by some immortal emperor. However, such a terrifying killing art was something he had never seen before in his life, causing him to tremble in fear. Rumble. Ling Xiao soared through the sky and attacked. His murderous aura permeated the air around him. Celestial light rose and transformed into billions of rays of sword light that interweaved into a destructive territory. At the same time, blazing lightning rose and vast heavenly might spread. It was the power of heavenly punishment that could destroy everything. Kill. Shi Qingchuan's expression was incomparably ugly. A terrifying divine light shot out from his eyes. An ancient sword instantly appeared in his hand. That was a quasi-emperor weapon. Ancient and mysterious. It pierced through the air towards Ling Xiao. Sword chi rose and endless sword light spread. Shi Qingchuan seemed to have turned into a supreme sword immortal that controlled everything. However, the Great Culling Immortal Art was a sword art. Although it contained the murderous origin, it was extremely compatible with the Immortal Culling Sword. It also contained the sword art origin. Although Shi Qingchuan was wielding a quasi-emperor weapon, the hundreds of millions of sword chi that he unleashed were all destroyed upon contact. Ling Zhao's figure shot across the sky like lightning. He quickly approached Shi Qingchuan and punched. Close combat was Ling Zhao's advantage. Ling Zhao's primordial immortal body was extremely strong. Shi Qingchuan was stronger than Ling Xiao in terms of cultivation. However, his physical strength was not as strong as Ling Zhao's. Boom, boom, boom. Ling Zhao's punches were like dragons. Every punch was like a supreme star falling from the sky. It contained the power to destroy heaven and earth. Ling Xiao and Shi Qingchuan continued to collide. The murderous aura around Ling Xiao grew stronger, and his understanding of the murderous origin became deeper. His attacks were as smooth as flowing water. However, there was an unparalleled ferocious aura. Ling Xiao and Shi Qingchuan turned into two balls of light in the void. They continued to collide. Every time they collided, there would be billions of dazzling lights. Go and snatch the array core. While Master Lei Ling is holding Shi Qingchuan back, we must not let Shi Wuji refine the array core. At this moment, Xie Wushuang woke up and said anxiously to the elders of the Xie family, "What about your injuries?" Someone asked hesitantly. "Don't worry about me. I'm fine. If we let Shi Wuji refine the array core, we will all die." Xie Wushuang said quickly. All right. The immortal venerables of the Xie family also knew the seriousness of the matter. They soared into the sky and charged towards Shiwuji. Protect Master. The 9 immortal venerables also went forward to prevent them from disturbing Shiwuji's refinement of the array core. Rumble. As the saying goes, when enemies meet, their eyes turn red. These immortal venerables instantly collided with each other, and an incomparably intense collision broke out. Third Sect Master. Chapter 2958. In the sky above the immortal ancient city, the heavens and earth shook as divine light rumbled. Madame Fuyao was fighting 2 immortal lords alone. Dubhe Immortal Lord and Tianxian Immortal Lord. They were the 2nd and 3rd strongest immortal lords among the 7 Big Dipper immortal lords. Their strength was terrifying. Even though Madame Fuyao was strong, she was still at a disadvantage under the joint attack of these 2 immortal lords. Something's wrong. Why would the All-Kate Immortal Sect send out 4 of the 7 Big Dipper Immortal Lords? Would they pay such a high price for a mere Shi family? Madame Fuyao's eyes shone brightly as she thought. She instinctively felt that something was wrong. The All-Kate Immortal Sect was not as strong as the old god cult. However, for this stone-opening ceremony, the All-Kate Immortal Sect had gone all out. They were willing to offend the old god cult to get the Shi family's loyalty. However, would the Shi family's loyalty really make the All-Kate Immortal Sect pay such a high price? The All-Kate Immortal Sect was not considered strong among the 9 immortal sects. They were weaker than the old god cult. Now the All-Kate Immortal Sect was determined to kill Madame Fuyao and the Jie family. They did not even think about the old god cult's revenge. Unless there were enough benefits for the All-Kate Immortal Sect to fight against the old god cult, the Shi family was not enough. Could it be? There's some treasure in the immortal ancient city that the All-Kate Immortal Sect must get? If there is, it can only be under the Immortal Coalescence Emperor formation. Madame Fuyao's eyes were deep as she looked at the immortal ancient city below. The Immortal Coalescence Emperor formation was extremely ancient and mysterious. Although the Jie family and the Shi family were the owners of the immortal ancient city, they had never investigated the secrets of the Immortal Coalescence Emperor formation. Even the old god cult did not find anything valuable, and could only give up in the end. However, it seemed that this was not the case. The Immortal Coalescence Emperor formation might be suppressing an unparalleled treasure, which was why the All-Kate Immortal Sect was willing to pay such a high price. All-Kate Immortal Sect? You will never know the strength of the Immortal Sect. Since you want the treasure in the formation, I'll help you. I'm also curious about what's in it. Madame Fuyao sneered in her heart. Her eyes revealed a trace of madness as she made a decision in her heart. At this moment, whether it was Madame Fuyao, the celestial master elder of the ancient god cult, or the experts of the Jie family, all of them were at a disadvantage and seemed to be in imminent danger. After all, All-Kate Immortal Sect and Shi family were determined to win this time. No matter what, they had to completely control the deity's Coalescence Emperor formation and kill all the experts from Xie family and ancient god cult. In the formation space, Shi Qingchuan and Ling Xiao were locked in a fierce battle. The immortal venerables of Shi family and immortal venerables of Jie family were engaged in an intense battle. Even Jie Wushuang, who had yet to fully recover, rushed towards Shiwuji to stop him from refining the core of the formation. However, she was stopped by several immortal venerables of the Shi family. Shiwuji was being protected by everyone as he rapidly refined the core of the array formation. However, if this trend continued, the ancient god cult and the Xie family would be in grave danger. Once Shiwuji refined the core of the formation, they would be doomed. How could they stop Shiwuji from refining the array core? From Madame Fuyao's point of view, it was very simple. Just destroy the core area. Although this would not be able to completely destroy the deity's Coalescence Emperor formation, it would cause a great disturbance to the Emperor formation. Even if Shiwuji refined the core of the formation, it would be difficult for him to control the deity's Coalescence Emperor formation. Rumble. Madame Fuyao's body bloomed with ancient and blazing divine light. Although she was extremely beautiful and had a voluptuous figure, her body contained an incomparably violent power like a volcano. She approached Tian Shu Immortal Lord and Tian Xian Immortal Lord at an extremely fast speed. Then she exploded with an extremely powerful physical strength and blasted Tian Shu Immortal Lord and Tian Xian Immortal Lord away. Wang. In the palm of Madame Fuyao, a dazzling light shone, and in an instant, a strange arrow appeared. It looked like a divine dragon in the shape of a dragon, filled with 9-colored divine clouds. It was lifelike, ancient, and mysterious. Roar. The arrow let out a loud and clear dragon roar. It was vast and vast, causing one's body to tremble and their faces to be filled with shock. The arrow instantly bloomed with 9-colored divine light. It shot out from Madame Fuyao's hand and headed towards the formation space below the deity's ancient city. This is the 9-dragon celestial arrow. It's not easy to devour. Tian Shu Immortal Lord's body shook. His eyes were filled with shock as he roared. Rumble. The 4 immortal lords of Alcade Immortal Sect gave up on their opponents at the same time. Their auras rose and instantly formed a strong defensive barrier. They supported the formation space and wanted to stop the 9-dragon celestial arrow. The 9-dragon celestial arrow was a one-time use extreme Dao Emperor weapon. The 9-dragon celestial arrow was a unique treasure of the ancient god sect. Legend had it that it was created by a great emperor of the ancient god sect, the 9-dragon celestial emperor. It contained an unparalleled extreme Dao Emperor weapon. Its power was comparable to a great emperor's attack. The 9-dragon celestial arrow was rare even in the ancient god sect. It was considered a rare treasure. The 4 immortal lords of Alcade Immortal Sect did not expect Madame Fuyao to be so crazy as to activate the 9-dragon celestial arrow. If the 9-dragon celestial arrow completely destroyed the deity's coalescence emperor formation, not only would Shi Wuji not be able to control the emperor formation, but the treasure in the emperor formation would also be damaged. Lunatic, she's really a lunatic. Tian Shu Immortal Lord cursed in anger. Crack. However, even if the 4 immortal lords joined forces, they still could not stop the 9-dragon celestial arrow. A crisp sound rang out. The surrounding void shook and the heaven and earth roared. In an instant, the defensive barrier formed by the 4 immortal lords shattered. The formation space was also pierced through by the 9-dragon celestial arrow. The 9-dragon celestial arrow was surrounded by 9-colored light. It was like a 9-colored divine dragon as it pierced through the vast land. It wanted to completely destroy this area. Rumble. However, at this moment, the deity's coalescence emperor formation seemed to feel the threat of the 9-dragon celestial arrow and was instantly awakened. Vast extreme Dao Emperor aura roared like the sea, causing the heaven and earth to tremble violently. The 9-dragon celestial arrow collided with the deity's coalescence emperor formation in an instant. Rumble. A huge explosion erupted in an instant. Endless divine light blazed and rose, turning into lightning and flames. It was like a volcanic eruption. It was a horrifying scene that looked like the end of the world. At this moment, everyone in the formation space was affected. When the horrifying wave came, everyone's body shook violently. Blood spurted out of their mouths, as if they were being suppressed by billions of immemorial divine mountains. Chapter 2959. Has the immortal coalescence emperor formation been destroyed? The same thought appeared in everyone's mind, and their eyes were filled with incomparable shock. Rumble. But at this moment, in the depths of the great sovereign, within the immortal coalescence emperor formation, an incomparably terrifying divine light of slaughter soared up, containing an ancient power. Billions of sword lights shot out, completely annihilating the power of the 9-dragon's heavenly arrow. The slaughter divine light pierced through the heavens and the earth, as if it was the first sword chi that split the heavens and the earth. It was extremely sharp and could destroy everything. Everyone's expression was incomparably solemn, as they felt a force that made their scalps tingle. This is the birth of the supreme treasure? He Immortal Lord shuddered. Then he revealed an overjoyed expression and became extremely excited. Collect the supreme treasure. As the He Immortal Lord roared, the 4 immortal lords from the Alcade Immortal Sect and the 3 immortal lords from the Shi family all leaped up and flew towards the source of the slaughter divine light. They felt a boundless killing aura from there. That was the fluctuation of a supreme treasure. which made them incomparably excited. The people from the Alcade Immortal sect gave up on killing Madame Fuyao and the Jie family, and rushed towards the formation space without caring about anything else. They wanted to snatch the supreme treasure. Snatch the treasure. Madame Fuyao's eyes flashed, and in an instant, she leaped into the air like a peerless goddess. Her speed was extremely fast, and she also moved away. She had guessed correctly. What the Alcade Immortal sect valued was not the Sure family, but the supreme treasure that was suppressed in the Immortal Coalescence Emperor formation. She just did not know what the supreme treasure that could release such a terrifying slaughter origin aura was. Why is this slaughter origin aura similar to the immortal skill that Lei Ling used before? A question flashed through Madame Fuyao's mind. Not only Madame Fuyao, but the immortal lords from the Alcade Immortal sect and the Sure family were also puzzled. At this moment Ling Xiao, who was using the Great Slaughter immortal skill, felt an extremely familiar aura from the depths of the earth. It was a kind of intimate call, as if a wanderer who had left home for a long time had seen his parents. And it was full of attachment and reluctance. This is the aura of the great culling immortal art? Ling Xiao was slightly taken aback, and a strange look appeared in his eyes. Rather than calling it to him, it would be more accurate to call it to the great immortal slaying art. Ling Xiao could sense that some sort of treasure was trying to rush out from the depths of the earth. Could it be? A thought appeared in Ling Xiao's mind. Rumble. At this moment, the four immortal monarchs of the Alcade Immortal sect, Madame Fuyao, and the immortal monarchs of the Jie and Sure clans all rushed towards the array space. A huge abyss appeared in the space of the matrix. It seemed to have been created by the 9 dragon arrows, but it also seemed to have been created by the power of the slaughter origin deep in the earth. Many immortal lords had just arrived in front of the abyss, and before they had time to check out the treasures in the abyss, they felt an extremely terrifying aura rushing out from the abyss. Rumble. A heaven-piercing slaughter divine light shot up to the 9 heavens again. The blazing divine light was dazzling, immortal light filled the air, and auspicious vapors rose. Everyone could see an ancient sword exuding an endless murderous aura in the middle of the blazing light pillar, blooming with a vast emperor's aura. It really is the immortal slaying sword. Ha ha ha. Stop, Fuyao. The immortal slaying sword belongs to me. The Dubhe immortal monarch's eyes revealed a trace of ecstasy. He instantly soared into the sky and tried to grab the ancient sword. The immortal slaying sword? Devour. At this moment, Ling Xiao's eyes also revealed an extremely strange light. He exuded a vast killing aura, and the great immortal slaying art was activated, causing him to exude an endless killing intent. The supreme treasure suppressed in the Immortal Coalescence Emperor formation was, as Ling Xiao had guessed, the immortal slaying sword. It was an emperor's weapon of the same origin as the great immortal slaying art. It was one of the 4 swords of the heavenly reaching emperor, the immortal slaying sword. The Dubhe immortal monarch was about to grab the immortal slaying sword, but the sword turned into a stream of light and quickly fell into Ling Xiao's palm. No! The Dubhe immortal monarch roared, his eyes filled with unwillingness. This was the supreme emperor's weapon, the immortal slaying sword, and it had fallen into Ling Xiao's hands. This was the supreme treasure that the Alcade Immortal sect could not forget. It had been suppressed in the Immortal Coalescence Emperor formation for many years, and the Alcade Immortal sect had planned for countless years, but now it was all in vain. The Dubhe immortal monarch finally knew why Ling Xiao's aura was so similar to the immortal slaying sword. It was because Ling Xiao had cultivated the great immortal slaying art. Rumble. Ling Xiao held the immortal slaying sword in his hand, and his body bloomed with endless light. The surging killing aura filled the air, and all of it turned into slaughter sword chi, forming a sword domain around Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao's aura was monstrous, like the reincarnation of the omnipotent great emperor. He exuded an invincible aura, and everyone was shocked. My Lei Lang is so powerful. He actually cultivated the great immortal slaying art. Madame Fuyao's beautiful eyes glowed as she muttered to herself with a smile. This was a supreme immortal technique, one of the 4 great emperor techniques of the omnipotent great emperor. The heavenly immortal sect had been searching for it for countless years, but they did not expect it to fall into Ling Xiao's hands. And Ling Xiao was now a member of the old god cult. This turn of events stunned the experts of the old god cult and the Jia family, especially Jia Wushuang and Shi Wuji. They had been fighting to the death for the core of the formation. But now they realized that the core of the formation had collapsed directly. The immortal slaying sword was the core of the immortal coalescence emperor formation. It turned out that the Jia family and the Shi family had never truly controlled this supreme emperor formation. Hand over the immortal slaying sword, or die. He immortal master roared, his hair and beard fluttering. His eyes were filled with the flames of jealousy as he pounced towards Ling Xiao. His emperor's aura filled the air, and his aura was incomparably terrifying. When his palm fell from the sky, it was as if a galaxy was hidden in his palm, causing his palm to contain the power of billions of galaxies. It was terrifying to the extreme. You want the immortal slaying sword? Then I'll give it to you. Ling Xiao said indifferently. Boom. He held the immortal slaying sword in his hand, and executed the great immortal slaying art at the same time. His body bloomed with blazing slaughter origin as he slashed down. The sword chi swept across the heavens, and the stars in the sky were chopped down at the same time. This sword seemed to have pierced through time and space, and turned into the only eternity. It directly destroyed the huge palm print in the void, and then mightily chopped down on the chest of the He immortal lord. Sword light illuminates the 10 worlds. Puff. He immortal master spat out a mouthful of blood, and his entire body flew out. He immortal master was defeated by a single sword. Chapter 2960. Everyone was stunned. That was the most powerful He immortal lord, the second in command of the All-Kate immortal sect. His strength was unparalleled, and he was a famous figure in the immortal world. Yet, he was defeated by Ling Xiao with a single strike? How could Ling Xiao become so terrifying with the immortal culling sword in his hand? Is this the immortal culling sword? Everyone's breathing became a little hurried, and their eyes were filled with a blazing light. The Tongtian immortal emperor was indeed worthy of his reputation. The power of the 4 immortal swords was unparalleled in the world. It was no wonder that the Tongtian immortal sect could suppress the other immortal sects with just the immortal slaying sword and the immortal trapping sword. If he obtained the immortal culling sword, he might have a chance to try for the peerless immortal lord position. After the He immortal lord was defeated by Ling Xiao, everyone became silent, and no one dared to attack Ling Xiao. But only Ling Xiao knew why the immortal culling sword was so powerful. That was because the immortal culling sword had accumulated power for countless years. When it exploded, it was as if the extreme emperor's aura had been completely awakened. Even though the He immortal lord was powerful, he could not withstand the attack of the immortal culling sword, and was severely injured. However, even without the accumulated power, the immortal culling sword was still powerful enough. Especially Ling Xiao's great immortal culling art, which had reached the complete realm. Therefore, he could already unleash the power of the immortal culling sword even before he refined it. Lei Ling, hand over the immortal culling sword. Otherwise, today will be the day you die. Shi Wuji's face was distorted and his eyes were filled with jealousy as he roared at Ling Xiao. He was going crazy with jealousy. Why was Lei Ling more powerful than him? Why was Lei Ling recognized by the immortal culling sword? Why did this stone-cracking ceremony become Lei Ling's personal show? Shi Wuji was the true god's favored one. He was destined to control the immortal coalescence emperor array, and become the chosen one. He was destined to control the life and death of the Jia family and ancient god cult. But all of this was destroyed by Ling Xiao. Lei Ling, hand over the immortal culling sword and I will spare your life. Heavenly Jade immortal lord said coldly. Don't think that you can do whatever you want with the immortal culling sword. How many times can you withstand the immortal culling sword's attack with your cultivation? If you don't hand over the immortal culling sword, everyone from the Jia family and the ancient god cult will die today. Hand over the immortal slaughtering sword and I'll spare your lives. The other 2 high immortal monarchs also said coldly. Although Ling Xiao had obtained the immortal culling sword, in terms of combat strength, the All-Kate immortal sect and the Shi family still had an absolute advantage. Once the battle started, even if Ling Xiao had the immortal culling sword, how could he withstand the attacks of several immortal monarchs? You want the immortal slaughtering sword? You think you're worthy? Madame Fuyao sneered, her eyes full of disdain. Actually, you should give this immortal slaughtering sword to me. Ling Xiao said calmly as he looked at Shi Wuji with a faint smile. I still have to thank your Shi family's Qianyuan stone shop. If I didn't find the jade inheritance in the Qianyuan stone shop, how could I obtain the great immortal culling art and control the immortal culling sword? It's all thanks to you. Ling Xiao's words caused Shi Wuji's entire body to tremble. That piece of jade inheritance actually contained the inheritance of the great immortal culling art? Deep regret spread in Shi Wuji's heart. He was about to go crazy. If they knew that the immortal stone in the Qianyuan stone shop could unlock the great immortal culling art, why would they bother to hold the stone opening ceremony? If they directly inherited the great immortal culling art and obtained the immortal culling sword, not only would they be able to control the immortal coalescence emperor formation, but the Jie family would have been wiped out by the Shi family. I'm so stupid. A thought emerged in Shi Wuji's mind. Ah. Puffed. Shi Wuji couldn't hold it in any longer and suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. He was so angry at Ling Xiao's words that he spat out blood. Too sullen. According to Ling Xiao, it was the Shi family who gave the immortal culling sword to Ling Xiao. At this moment, everyone's expression became extremely strange. They didn't expect Ling Xiao's luck to be so good. To be able to obtain the Imperial Jade Palace inheritance. Coincidentally, the Imperial Jade Palace inheritance contained the great immortal culling art and the immortal culling sword. Ling Xiao had taken advantage of all the advantages in the world. Moreover, do you really think you can defeat me with just the few of you? Devour. Ling Xiao smiled faintly, and a trace of sharpness appeared in his eyes. Boom. Blazing divine light gushed out and Ling Xiao's body shone brightly. The surrounding void was shaking, and a peerless beauty appeared behind him. The official Xiantian Celestial Master. Previously, when Ling Xiao participated in the martial battle of the stone opening ceremony, he was afraid that the Xiantian Celestial Master would attack Ren Xiaoyao. So he temporarily kept her in his small world. This was because Ling Xiao knew better than anyone that although the Xiantian Celestial Master didn't seem to have any spiritual intelligence, she was a great killing weapon. Especially after obtaining the Xiantian sword. Even Ling Xiao wasn't sure how terrifying the Xiantian Celestial Master's combat strength was. However, he believed that the Xiantian Celestial Master would definitely give everyone a surprise. Who is she? Everyone was slightly stunned, and some were curious about the identity of the Xiantian Celestial Master. However, when Shi Wuji saw the Xiantian sword in the Xiantian Celestial Master's hand, his body suddenly trembled, and a trace of disbelief appeared in his eyes. This is the Xiantian sword? Shi Wuji exclaimed in surprise. Wasn't the Xiantian sword already broken? Shi Wuji clearly remembered that the Xiantian sword had turned into scrap metal, and was eventually left to Jie Wushuang. However, how could it appear in the hands of this woman and become intact? Yes, you're right. This is the Xiantian sword. Speaking of which, I still have to thank you. If you hadn't abandoned the Xiantian sword, how could I have obtained it? It's your fortune to be able to die under the Xiantian sword today. Ling Xiao said with a smile. Impossible. This is impossible. The Xiantian sword has been completely destroyed. How can it still be intact? Who is she? Shi Wuji was about to go crazy. The faces of the Shi family members also became extremely ugly. Qianyuan Stone Shop actually produced so many treasures? Ling Xiao's inheritance Jade Palace contained the Great Slaughter Immortal Art, and Shi Wuji's Xiantian sword fragment was also intact? What was going on? The Xiantian sword is indeed just a fragment in your hands, but in her hands, it can erupt with peerless power. Who do you think she is? Ling Xiao said lightly. He didn't intend to hide the identity of the Xiantian Celestial Master. The Shi family would definitely be able to guess. After all, the Xiantian Celestial Master was too famous in the immortal realm. Many people had portraits of the Xiantian Celestial Master and recognized the Xiantian sword. Chapter 2961. Xian Immortal Master? Shi Wuji gritted his teeth and said. His eyes were filled with disbelief. Only the Xian Immortal Master could completely control the Xiantian sword. Shi Wuji did not expect that this woman, who looked a little silly and hollow, would be the Xiantian immortal master. Everyone's eyes were filled with disbelief. They were all stunned. The Xiantian immortal master was the most dazzling figure in the immortal realm for tens of millions of years. He was said to be a peerless expert who had the potential to become an immortal emperor. However, because he offended someone important, he was destroyed. The Xiantian immortal master was not dead? And she was a woman? They looked at the Xiantian immortal master and found that this woman was extremely beautiful and had an extraordinary temperament. She was not inferior to Madame Fuyao and Jie Wushuang. They could not see the Xiantian immortal master's cultivation, but they could feel that there was a vast energy fluctuation in her body. Even Madame Fuyao, dubbed he immortal master, and the others were shocked. After all, this peerless genius from tens of millions of years ago was standing in front of them, which made them feel a lot of pressure. You are the one who killed the experts of my Shi family and stole the divine jade fetus? Shi Wuji gritted his teeth and looked at Ling Xiao. Correct. So are you ready to let me kill you? Ling Xiao smiled slightly. Puffed. Shi Wuji spat out another mouthful of blood. He was about to explode from anger. This was too much. The Great Slaughter immortal art was the Shi family's, the Xiantian sword was the Shi family's, and the Xiantian immortal master was the Shi family's. What else was not the Shi family's? Most importantly, these were all given to Ling Xiao by the Shi family. Everyone from the Shi family looked as though their parents had died. Their expressions were extremely ugly, and their gazes towards Ling Xiao were filled with hatred and murderous intent. Since you all understand, you can die now. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. Killing intent flashed in his eyes, and he took the lead to kill the immortal masters of the Shi family. Rumble. The immortal slaughtering sword in his hand shone with unparalleled light. The sword chi was extremely sharp, and it constantly slashed down from the sky, causing a terrifying killing storm to gather around him. The Xiantian immortal master followed Ling Xiao and killed the immortal masters of the Shi family. Kill. Kill them all. Madame Fuyao sneered, her eyes revealing a trace of incomparably ruthless killing intent. Kill. At Xie Miesheng's command, the experts of the Xie family began their counterattack. Ling Xiao and the Xiantian immortal master were like two sharp knives that stabbed into the experts of the Shui family. Rumble. The Kill Immortal sword contained a terrifying slaughter origin. Although it was not as stunning as the previous sword, it was still extremely terrifying. It directly sent Shi Qingchuan, who was blocking in front of him, flying. Shi Qingchuan spat out a mouthful of blood. His eyes were filled with horror. Previously, Ling Xiao was only on par with him. However, Ling Xiao with the immortal culling sword gave him a feeling that he was no match for him. Clang. A sharp sword light bloomed. The baleful aura around the profound heaven immortal lord surged, containing an aura of extermination. The profound heaven sword flew through the air and instantly pierced through Shi Qingchuan's forehead. There was a destructive aura coming from the profound heavenly sword that directly destroyed Shi Qingchuan's indestructible origin spirit and killed him. An immortal master of the Shi family had fallen. The immortal master of the Xiantian immortal master's speed was too fast, and his attainments in sword Dao were extremely high. Although he did not have any self-awareness, he seemed to have retained a strong fighting instinct. Too strong. Was this the combat strength of a peerless immortal master? Ling Xiao could see that the immortal master of the Xiantian immortal master's strength had been greatly reduced. Her current cultivation was strange, between the immortal master and the immortal master. However, she still managed to kill Shi Qingchuan, who was a third heaven immortal master. What? Shi Pujuan and the other experts of the Shi family were all shocked. In just a single exchange, Shi Qingchuan was killed. Although they had overestimated Ling Xiao and the profound heaven celestial duke's strength, it seemed like it was still far beyond their imagination. Don't fight. Let's go. Dubhe Immortal Lord gritted his teeth and shouted at the crowd. Retreat. Upon hearing the Tianshu Immortal Lord's words, devour after that, Shi Pujuan also gave the order to retreat. Ling Xiao and Xiantian Immortal Lord were too strong. Now that the immortal slaughtering sword had fallen into Ling Xiao's hands, and the legendary profound heaven immortal monarch had also appeared, everyone from the Alcade Immortal School and Shi family had lost their will to fight. If the battle continued, the Alcade Immortal School and the Sher family would really be completely annihilated. You want to leave now? Too late. Ling Xiao sneered. Rumble. With the immortal culling sword in his hand, he seemed to have transformed into a peerless god of death. Every time his sword descended, the life of an immortal king of the Sher clan would be reaped by him. The profound heaven immortal monarch also followed closely behind Ling Xiao, launching a fatal attack on the Sher family. Although the Alcade Immortal School had 4 immortal monarchs, they were also held back by Madame Fuyao and the Jie family's immortal monarchs. For a moment, they were actually unable to escape. Clang, clang, clang. Sword chi swept across the void, and blood rained down. The experts of the Sher family died one by one in the hands of Ling Xiao and the profound heaven immortal monarch. This made Sher Pejuan and the other immortal monarch elders of the Sher family extremely angry. However, their rationality still told them that they had to leave quickly. Patriarch, you guys go. I'll hold them back. An old man with white hair and beard, who was an immortal monarch elder of the Sher family, roared with a trace of madness in his eyes. Rumble. Flames rose around him, and he actually chose to burn his indestructible primordial spirit and origin source body. He exploded with a terrifying power and charged towards Ling Xiao and the profound heaven immortal monarch. The power of an immortal monarch's self-destruction was extremely terrifying. Even Ling Xiao had to stop. He used the immortal slaughtering sword to attack the immortal monarch elder of the Sher family, while moving to the side. Boom. The immortal monarch directly self-destructed. It was as if a sun had exploded in the void, releasing a dazzling light that blocked Ling Xiao's attack. His death was too tragic. As for Ling Xiao, he was only sent flying and didn't suffer any serious injuries. Puff. However, on the other side, the profound heaven immortal monarch's killing intent rose. The profound heaven sword released a peerless light and instantly pierced through space and time. At the same time, it also pierced through the chest of a Sher family immortal monarch. Blood filled the air, and the void shook. Boom. Boundless sword chi gushed out from the profound heaven sword, instantly crushing the primordial spirit and vitality of the Sher family immortal monarch, causing him to explode in the void. The Sher family had lost 3 immortal monarchs. Now, only Sher Pejuan and Sher Wuji were left in the Sher family. The other Sher family experts were almost all dead. I will take revenge. Lei Ling Xia family ancient god cult I Sher Pejuan will definitely take revenge. Just you wait. Sher Pejuan's eyes were about to split open, and 2 streams of blood flowed out. He roared madly, his voice filled with monstrous hatred and killing intent. This was the enmity of the annihilation of the Sher family. They could not live under the same sky. Sher Pejuan took Sher Wuji and took out an immortal talisman. They tore through the void and disappeared from the sky of the immortal ancient city. They had escaped. Chapter 2962. Retreat. Seeing so many experts of the Sher family being killed, including 3 immortal lords, the Dubhe immortal lord's eyes twitched as he yelled out loud. Swoosh. 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 This time Alcade Immortal Sect had sent Dubhe Immortal Lord, Tianxian Immortal Lord, Migrez Immortal Lord, and Mizar Immortal Lord. In addition, there were more than a dozen immortal primes including Ren Xiaoyao and the rest. They were considered an extremely powerful force. But now that the Sher family had been annihilated, Alcade Immortal Sect was helpless. Dubhe Immortal Lord decisively ordered to retreat. Kill them all! Kill them all! Murderous intent flashed in Madame Fuyao's eyes. Blazing divine light rose around her as she charged towards Dubhe Immortal Lord and blocked his path. Jie Mieshing and the other immortal lords from the Jie family also blocked the other 3 immortal lords, and began to kill the other experts from Alcade Immortal Sect. Get lost! Dubhe Immortal Lord roared as a terrifying aura gushed out from his body. Rumble! The void shook as billions of starlight shone down. Dubhe Immortal Lord's acupuncture points seemed to correspond with the stars in the sky, erupting with a powerful star origin energy. 9 heaven stars fall immortal technique. Dubhe Immortal Lord roared. In an instant, billions of galaxies seemed to flow around his body. Countless stars turned upside down as a terrifying force turned into a peerless palm that pressed down on Madame Fuyao and the rest. This was the supreme immortal technique of all Kate immortal sect. Rin Xiaorao had used it before, but it was not as powerful as Dubhe immortal lords. Supreme stars fell one by one. They were all formed by star origin energy, and were extremely terrifying as if they were going to destroy the world. Dubhe immortal lord. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Heaven and earth mourning ancient god technique. Madame Fuyao's eyes flashed coldly as she scolded. Rumble. Billions of divine light gushed out from her body, causing the clouds to move and the heavens and earth to shake as if they could destroy everything. Her aura was terrifying to the extreme. Heaven and earth changed. Dark clouds rolled furiously, and a rain of blood fell from the sky. It was as if the heavens were wailing in grief. Behind Madame Fuyao, a towering giant appeared. It was like an ancient demon god, exuding a terrifying aura that could shatter everything. The giant's aura was too terrifying. He struck across the sky and collided with Dubhe Immortal Lord's 9 Heavens Starfall Immortal Art. In an instant, millions of rays of divine light shot out. Wang. The void in all directions shook violently and shattered like a mirror. Endless divine light shone dazzlingly, and the celestial light intertwined before finally being annihilated. As for Madame Fuyao and Dubhe Immortal Lord, their bodies shook violently at the same time. Fresh blood spurted from their mouths as they were sent flying back. What a powerful 9 Heavens Starfall immortal technique! Madame Fuyao praised in her heart. Previously, Dubhe Immortal Lord had been severely injured by Ling Zhao's immortal culling sword, but now he still had such powerful combat strength and was almost on par with Madame Fuyao. It was clear how powerful this supreme immortal technique was. Let's go! Although Dubhe Immortal Lord was spurting blood, and his aura was a little weak, he was extremely decisive. He had no intention to continue fighting. He swept Rin Xiaorao up and shouted at the crowd. Crack! He crushed an immortal talisman. In an instant, blazing celestial light rose and opened a spatial door in front of him. It was extremely stable, as though it led to an unknown place. Dubhe Immortal Lord swept Rin Xiaorao up and entered the spatial door, disappearing without a trace. After all, Dubhe Immortal Lord's strength was unparalleled. In the All-Kate Immortal sect, he was second only to the sect master, All-Kate Immortal Lord. Madame Fuyao was not confident that she could kill Dubhe Immortal Lord. However, she did not intend to let the remaining people go. Kill! Madame Fuyao shouted as she charged towards the remaining 3 immortal monarchs. Rumble! At the same time, Ling Xiao wielded the immortal culling sword and the Xiantian Immortal Lord wielded the Xiantian sword. Sword chi swept across the void, as though it could shatter everything. It was extremely sharp. Especially the Xiantian Immortal Lord, he was like a killing machine. His attacks were as fast as lightning, and each sword could take away a life. Almost none of the immortal primes of All-Kate Immortal sect were a match for the Xiantian Immortal Lord's sword. They all died under the Xiantian sword. Soon, there were only 3 immortal lords left in All-Kate Immortal sect. Damn it! Get out of my way! The Heavenly Jade Immortal Lord's face was extremely ugly as he roared. The spatial door opened by Dubhe Immortal Lord was extremely sturdy. Even immortal lords could not destroy it. When the 3 immortal lords were about to leave with Dubhe Immortal Lord, they were stopped by Madame Fuyao and Jianyesheng. Then Ling Xiao and the Xiantian Immortal Lord also charged over. With so many experts besieging the 3 immortal lords of All-Kate Immortal sect, they were instantly surrounded by danger. It was especially so for Madame Fuyao and the Xiantian Immortal Lord. These 2 peerless beauties were extremely powerful. Madame Fuyao had absolute cultivation while the Xiantian Immortal Lord was unparalleled in the way of the sword, and could destroy everything. Although the Heavenly Jade Immortal Lord, the Migres Immortal Lord, and the Mizar Immortal Lord tried their best to counterattack, they soon fell into a disadvantageous position. Madame Fuyao, your ancient god cult is too much. Do you really want to be enemies with All-Kate Immortal sect? The Heavenly Jade Immortal Lord roared. Too much? You are really a thief-crying thief. If you want to seize the immortal ancient city, you have already chosen to be enemies with ancient god cult. Don't you feel childish saying these words now? Madame Fuyao sneered. Swoosh swoosh. Although she was talking, she did not show any mercy. Blazing sword light bloomed in her palm, as if it could destroy everything. In an instant, she forced the heavenly jade immortal lord to retreat, and left a few deep wounds on his body. The spatial door opened by Dubhe immortal lord was right in front of them. However, the three immortal lords of Alcade immortal sect were unable to break through the seal and encirclement. They had no way to escape. It looked like the three of them were going to die here. Rumble. At this moment, a blazing light bloomed from the spatial door. In an instant, a dazzling immortal sun appeared in the sky. Vaguely, an incomparably mysterious figure appeared. That figure was indifferent and ethereal. He struck out with his palm. Although it looked light, it seemed to be able to overturn the heavens and earth, reverse the sun and moon, and cause all living beings to fall into an endless cycle of reincarnation. Kill. Madame Fuyao Ling Xiao and Xian Yesheng trembled as they felt a dangerous aura. Without hesitation, they unleashed their strongest attacks towards that figure. Boom. That mysterious palm print fell and annihilated all the attacks in the sky. It was as if it had turned into millions of dazzling stars. Madame Fuyao, Ling Xiao, and the rest felt their bodies tremble as they were sent flying. Peak. Chapter 2963. Thank you, Senior Brother Sect Master. The Heavenly Jade Immortal Lord, Migra's Immortal Lord, and Mizar Immortal Lord were overjoyed. With no more obstacles in front of them, they instantly turned into streams of light and rushed towards the spatial gate. Want to leave? How can it be so easy? A cold light flashed in Ling Zhao's eyes as vast killing intent surged around him. The immortal culling sword in his hand struck out horizontally, erupting with dazzling sword light as it pierced towards Migra's Immortal Lord. The Mystic Heaven Immortal Lord seemed to have set his eyes on the Mizar Immortal Lord. The Mystic Heaven sword was incomparably sharp as it also charged towards the Mizar Immortal Lord. Impudent. That figure was majestic and mysterious as he shouted coldly. Another palm fell from the sky, enveloping Ling Xiao and the Mystic Heaven Immortal Lord. It's you who is impudent. Alcade Immortal Lord, I didn't expect your cultivation to have reached such a level. You're not far from the Immortal Lord realm, right? You're just a mere projection clone. Do you really think I'm afraid of you? Madame Fuyao sneered, and without hesitation, met the palm head-on. She could see that this figure was the sect master of the Alcade Immortal sect, the Alcade Immortal Lord. Madame Fuyao was extremely shocked. This Alcade Immortal Lord was indeed the strongest of the Alcade 7 Immortal Lords. His strength was indeed unfathomable. A mere projection clone had such powerful strength. However, the more it was like this, the more it stimulated Madame Fuyao's fighting spirit. Rumble. Yaoguang Madame managed to block the palm strike, but her entire body shook violently, and she was sent flying. Ling Xiao and the Mystic Heaven Immortal Lord arrived first. The Immortal Culling Sword and the Mystic Heaven Sword, these two great Emperor weapons, released an unparalleled Emperor's aura that surged and enveloped the Migra's Immortal Lord and the Mizar Immortal Lord. In the end, only the Heavenly Jade Immortal Lord successfully entered the spatial gate. Puff. The Mystic Heaven Sword was incomparably sharp. The Emperor's aura within it seemed to contain some kind of extermination aura. It directly pierced through the Mizar Immortal Lord's glabella and destroyed his indestructible primordial spirit. Endless sword chi shot out, and the Mizar Immortal Lord's powerful physical body instantly exploded in the void. In the end, the third Heaven Celestial Lord did not manage to escape the profound Heaven Celestial Lord's sword. The seventh of the Alcade 7 Immortal Lords, the Mizar Immortal Lord, had fallen. Crack. Although the Immortal Culling Sword was incomparably powerful and could destroy everything, the Migra's Immortal Lord was also very powerful. Although Ling Xiao left a long bloody mark on his body in the end, and almost split him in half. However, the Migra's Immortal Lord still did not die under the Immortal Culling Sword. Damn it. Just you wait, the Alcade Immortal School will not let you off. The Migra's Immortal Lord roared furiously as he frantically moved towards the spatial door. Puff. However, half of the Migra's Immortal Lord's body had already entered the spatial door. Ling Xiao and the Xian Tian Immortal Lord rushed over at the same time. The immortal culling sword and the Xian Tian sword intertwined and exploded with a terrifying aura of slaughter and extermination. At the last moment, they beheaded the Migres immortal lord. Rumble. His indestructible primordial spirit, and half of his body exploded into a bloody mist. The Migres immortal lord was dead. At this point, apart from the Dubhe immortal lord, the Heavenly Jade immortal lord, and Ren Xiaoyao, all the other experts of the Alcade immortal school had died in battle. This included 2 of the Alcade 7 immortal lords. After this battle, it would probably shake the entire immortal world. Old God Cult, I will remember you. The Alcade immortal lord's voice rumbled, containing a trace of anger and killing intent. He probably did not expect that he would not be able to save the Migres immortal lord and the Mizar immortal lord even when he personally took action. The death of the 2 immortal lords also caused the Old God Cult and the Alcade immortal school to form a deadly feud. So what if you remember us? Alcade old man, if I see any of your Alcade immortal school's disciples again, I'll kill them all. Madame Fu Yao sneered. This battle could be said to be a complete victory, which made Madame Yao Guang feel proud and elated. The Jie family and the Shi family of the immortal ancient city were both subordinates of the Old God Cult. Although this was hidden from most people in the immortal world, it could not be hidden from the experts of the 9 immortal sects. The Alcade immortal sect coveted the treasure suppressed under the immortal ancient city. Therefore, through sowing discord, they hit it off with the disloyal Shi family and colluded with them. The situation in the immortal ancient city was extremely complicated. Madame Fu Yao originally did not have much confidence, and could not even figure out the intentions of the Shi family and the Alcade immortal sect. She only thought that the Shi family wanted to betray the Old God Cult and rely on the Alcade immortal sect. But now, the truth was revealed. It turned out that the Alcade immortal sect was after the immortal slaughtering sword. If Ling Xiao had not controlled the immortal slaughtering sword at the last moment and destroyed the Shi family, they would have been in real danger. My Lei Ling is so powerful. Madame Fu Yao's beautiful eyes glowed as she looked at Ling Xiao and whispered to herself. Such a Lei Ling made Madame Fu Yao more and more fascinated. It's a pity that Shi Pujuan and the 2 people from the Alcade immortal sect escaped. Jie Miexing's words broke Madame Fu Yao's thoughts. It doesn't matter. From today onwards, Shi Pujuan is just a stray dog. And the Alcade immortal sect is not scary. Since they dared to covet the treasure of our immortal sect, they can only wait for our endless revenge. Madame Fu Yao sneered. Madam, what about the immortal ancient city? Jie Miexing smiled slightly. Madame Fu Yao glanced at him and said indifferently, Don't worry. I mean what I say. You have made a great contribution to the immortal sect. From today onwards, the immortal ancient city belongs to the Jie family. The Jie family will be the owner of the immortal ancient city in the future. Hearing Madame Fu Yao's promise, not only Jie Miexing, but also many elders of the Jie family were extremely excited. Although the battle was perilous and the Jie family had gambled the fate of their family, they had won the gamble in the end. The Shi family was destroyed. From now on, only the Jie family was left. The surrounding people in the immortal ancient city were shocked. They had a vague idea that the owner of the immortal ancient city would be the Jie family from today onwards. The relationship between the Jie family and the Old God Cult was not concealed, and everyone knew about it. In other words, the immortal ancient city would belong to the Old God Cult in the future. Everyone had an incomparably deep understanding of the power of the Old God Cult. This Lei Ling should be a supreme talent cultivated by the Old God Cult, right? With such terrifying combat strength, such great luck in the immortal sword, I'm afraid his future is limitless. Everyone's eyes fell on Ling Xiao as they thought to themselves. The biggest contributor to this battle was naturally Ling Xiao. If it were not for Ling Xiao's efforts to turn the tide, the Jie family and the Old God Cult might not have been able to defeat the combined forces of the Shi family and the Alcade immortal sect. With this battle, Lei Ling's name was deeply engraved in everyone's hearts, making them even more curious about Lei Ling's identity. Lei Ling? The romantic immortal King Lei Ling? I know who he is. At this moment, someone exclaimed, immediately attracting everyone's attention. On the other hand, Ling Xiao, who originally had a calm expression and a smile on his face, instantly stiffened, and his forehead was filled with black lines. Top. Chapter 2964. Ling Xiao did not expect that someone would recognize Lei Ling in the immortal ancient city. The romantic immortal King Lei Ling was an unbearable memory for Ling Xiao. When he thought of Lei Ling hooking up with the partners of hundreds of experts, he felt a headache coming on and a chill running down his spine. Lei Ling was really lucky to be able to live for so long. Ahem. I have something to do. I'll take my leave first. Ling Xiao coughed dryly and said. Jie Wushuang said something to Madame Fuyao, and then turned to leave. His speed was extremely fast and he disappeared from everyone's sight in an instant. The romantic immortal King Lei Ling? Is he famous? Suddenly, the crowd's fire of gossip was ignited, and they asked curiously. You don't know about this, right? It's normal that the immortal prefecture does not know about Lei Ling. However, Lei Ling is very famous in the other prefectures. He's handsome and extraordinary. Countless women are attracted to him and want to elope with him. However, this Lei Ling only likes to marry other people's women. It can be said that he has walked through thousands of flowers, but not a single leaf has touched him. He is the role model of our generation. The insider chuckled. The romantic immortal King Lei Ling? He's really a role model for our generation. Everyone was stunned. They did not expect young Master Lei Ling to have such a glorious past. However, when Jie Wushuang heard this, his face was filled with a strange expression. Everyone, let's disperse. Madame Fuyao said faintly. The destruction of the Shi family and the fall of many experts of the All-Cade Immortal sect also announced the victory of the Jie family and the Ancient God sect. From then on, the immortal ancient city fell into the hands of the Ancient God sect. Although a small number of people were curious about Ling Xiao, most people's attention was attracted by the battle. Everyone looked at Madame Fuyao and the members of the Jie family with eyes full of reverence. After hearing Madame Fuyao's words, they hurriedly dispersed. Under the command of Jie Miesheng, the experts of the Jie family began to clean up the remaining members of the Shi family, maintain order in the immortal ancient city, and take over the Shi family's property. Madame Fuyao, on the other hand, returned to the Xiu family's residence and found Ling Xiao. Lei Lang, I really didn't expect you to have such a fortuitous encounter after leaving the immortal realm. Not only did your combat strength increase greatly, you even obtained the great immortal culling art and the immortal culling sword. This is the flesh and blood essence of an immortal monarch, as well as undying matter. Take it and refine it. I will strive to break through to the high immortal realm as soon as possible. Madame Fuyao's beautiful eyes were sparkling as she smiled at Ling Xiao. She exuded an aura that made one's heart flutter. She handed Ling Xiao a resplendent ball of light. Within the ball of light was the flesh essence and immortal matter of the 5 immortal monarchs. Immortal monarchs had condensed their origin bodies. Their flesh and blood could be said to be supreme nourishment, comparable to top-grade immortal pills. Not only did they contain boundless energy, but they also contained vast amounts of immortal matter. The reason why the immortals were so powerful, had such a long lifespan, and were said to be immortal was because their bodies were infused with a large amount of immortal matter. The immortal matter in an immortal monarch's body would definitely be more concentrated. Although the 5 immortal monarchs had died tragically, and most of the immortal matter in their bodies had dissipated, the remaining flesh and blood still contained boundless immortal matter. It was extremely precious to Ling Xiao. Thank you, madam, Ling Xiao said with a smile. Naturally, he accepted it without hesitation. In fact, when he had killed the 3 immortal monarchs of the Shi family, Ling Xiao had secretly used the heaven-devouring secret skill to devour the flesh essence and immortal matter. If it weren't for the fact that they were afraid of being detected, the 3 immortal monarchs would not have left any flesh and blood essence behind. But now, the flesh and blood essence of the 5 immortal monarchs were in Ling Xiao's hands. If a celestial prime expert had the flesh and blood essence and immortal matter of the 5 immortal monarchs, his chances of breaking through to the immortal monarch realm would increase by more than 70%. But for me, I'm afraid it's still not enough. Ling Xiao sighed in his heart and thought to himself. Ling Xiao's accumulation was too strong. He had the 12 sky skills secret skill, and the 5 great imperial scriptures. Now that his body had merged with Lei Ling's immortal root, he had built an extremely solid foundation. With Ling Zhao's cultivation, it was not that easy to break through to the immortal emperor realm. However, Ling Xiao vaguely felt that the flesh and blood essence and immortal matter of the immortal monarchs might be able to transform his immortal root in some way. Ling Xiao felt that his hope of breaking through to the immortal emperor realm might lie in the immortal realm. Lei Ling, the matter in the immortal ancient city is over. Now follow me back to the old god cult. Madame Fuyao smiled at Ling Xiao. Back to the old god cult? Okay. Ling Zhao's eyes glinted as he nodded his head and said. He knew Madame Fuyao's intention. She wanted Ling Xiao to go back to the old god cult to restrain Yunqi Saintis for her. However, Ling Xiao had his own considerations. Once he entered the old god cult, he would be able to obtain more clues and information, and find out more about the immortal realm. Moreover, the secret of the Eternal Emperor Road was probably only known to existences like the old god cult and the 9 major immortal sects. You should refine the flesh and blood essence first. We will set off in 3 days. Madame Fuyao smiled charmingly and turned to leave. Ling Xiao heaved a sigh of relief. He was really afraid that Madame Fuyao would do something. If that was the case, it would be really difficult for him. He put away the distracting thoughts in his mind and set up a formation in a secret chamber of the Jie family. He sat cross-legged and began to refine the flesh and blood essence and immortal matter of the immortal monarchs. Rumble. Ling Xiao used the sky-devouring secret technique, and a vast sky-devouring sacred domain appeared around him. The flesh and blood essence of the immortal monarchs looked sparkling and resplendent. The immortal light was dazzling and contained the essence of divinity and immortal light. A fragrance assailed his nostrils and thousands of rays of light shone. Even though the 5 immortal monarchs had fallen, their flesh and blood essence still seemed to be wriggling and contained a weak primordial spirit imprint. If Ling Xiao ignored their flesh and blood essence, perhaps after a few years, these flesh and blood essences could really give birth to new spiritual intelligence and evolve into real living beings. As Ling Xiao used the sky-devouring secret technique, the flesh and blood essence of the immortal monarchs began to surge into Ling Xiao's body like a torrent. The void in all directions vibrated slightly, and an ancient and mysterious aura lingered. Under Ling Xiao's guidance, he refined the immortal matter and slowly integrated it into the immortal root in his body. Roar. The immortal root in Ling Xiao's body was like a real dragon. After devouring a large amount of immortal matter, it let out a vast dragon roar and trembled slightly. Dazzling rays of light shot out from Ling Xiao's body, and the immortal root gradually emitted a 5-colored glow. It seemed to contain the power of the 5 elements and was perfect and flawless. The immortal matter in Ling Xiao's body became denser and denser. As he devoured more immortal matter, Ling Xiao realized that his primordial immortal body was becoming stronger. It was as if the immortal matter was a treasure that could strengthen the physical body and allow Ling Xiao's primordial immortal body to be endlessly enhanced. Chapter 2965. The news of the battle in the immortal ancient city quickly spread in all directions, causing the entire divine world to be shaken. On the surface, this battle seemed to be a battle between the Jie family and the Shi family of the immortal ancient city. However, it was actually a battle between the ancient god cult and the all-Cade immortal sect. The real identities of the ancient immortal city's stone-cutting family, the Jie family, and the Shi family were also exposed. They were all forces of the ancient god cult, which gave the people in the immortal realm a better understanding of the ancient god cult's strength. In this battle, the Shi family was annihilated and 2 of the Big Dipper immortal monarchs of the all-Cade immortal school had fallen, shocking the entire immortal world. Although there were many disputes in the immortal world, it was very rare for immortal monarchs to fall. In this battle, 5 immortal monarchs had fallen. More importantly, the news of the immortal culling sword's appearance had spread throughout the immortal realm. The heaven-reaching great emperor was definitely a dazzling great emperor expert in the immortal world. His strength was unfathomable, and he could even kill great emperors in the same realm. The 4 Skypiercer immortal arts and 4 Skypiercer immortal swords were supreme inheritances and treasures that would drive the entire immortal world crazy. For example, the heaven-reaching immortal sect had only obtained the great immortal slaying technique, the great immortal trapping technique, the immortal slaying sword, and the immortal trapping sword. Once they gathered the 4 great immortal arts and 4 great immortal swords and laid down the legendary heavenly sword formation, they might really be able to go against the heavens and slay emperors. The heavenly sword sect might even have a chance to become the leader of the 9 great immortal sects. Everyone knew that the heaven-reaching immortal gate had been searching for the other 2 immortal arts and immortal swords for countless years. With the appearance of the immortal slaughtering sword, the heavenly reaching immortal gate could no longer sit still. The Alcade immortal sect has suffered a great loss this time. They went for wool and came home shorn. Not only did they not get the immortal culling sword, the Sher family was also destroyed. Even 2 of the 7 Big Dipper immortal monarchs died. There's nothing we can do about it. I heard that the Alcade immortal sect was so angry that they were about to vomit blood. All of this is thanks to the ancient god cult. To be exact, it's thanks to Lei Ling. Lei Ling? Was it that rather famous distinguished immortal king? He's merely at the celestial king realm, and he has some reputation. It's also because this fellow likes to seduce married women, and is despised by others. What use can he be? You don't know this. It was said that Lei Ling's strength was incomparably strong, and he had already broken through to the immortal venerable realm. Furthermore, even Ren Xiaoyao and Shi Wuji were no match for him. He was also lucky to obtain the inheritance of the Imperial Jade Palace, which happened to inherit the Great Culling Immortal Technique. That's right. This Lei Ling relied on the great art of immortal slaughter to make a name for himself in the stone-cutting ceremony. At the critical moment, he controlled the immortal slaughter sword and affected the situation of this battle, which led to the annihilation of many experts from the Sher family and the Alcade immortal sect. The great immortal culling art and the immortal culling sword? This Lei Ling is really lucky. However, the immortal culling sword is a hot potato. I'm afraid the Heavenly Ascension immortal sect won't let this matter rest. The great immortal culling art and the immortal culling sword have long been taken by the Heavenspan immortal gate. I'm afraid Lei Ling is in trouble. The heavenly connecting immortal sect will definitely not allow the immortal culling sword to fall into the hands of the ancient god cult. I also heard something else. It is said that the profound heaven immortal lord did not die and appeared in the immortal ancient city. The most dazzling peerless immortal master from tens of millions of years ago? I heard that he offended a big shot, which led to the annihilation of the Xiantian sect. I didn't expect him to still be alive. I'm afraid the immortal world is going to be troubled times. I think the 9 immortal sects and the evil god cult will have a war sooner or later. What happened in the immortal ancient city had attracted the attention of many experts in the immortal world. The name Lei Ling had also become well known because of the battle in the immortal ancient city. Heaven-spanned immortal sect. There were many mountains suspended in the air that were like divine swords. They looked extremely steep and contained a monstrous sword essence. They held up a vast immortal palace. Every blade of grass, every tree, every mountain, and every rock here contained a vast sword essence. The Heavenspan immortal sect claimed to be the orthodox sword Tao of the immortal world. They claimed to be the inheritors of the Heavenspan great emperor. Most of their disciples cultivated sword Tao. Above one of the suspended mountains, the sound of swords vibrated in an instant. Lightning appeared in the void, as if billions of sword chi had appeared in the sky. An old man with white hair and beard slowly opened his eyes. Sword light rose in his eyes and evolved into a vast sword Tao world. Old ancestor, the immortal culling sword has appeared. An elegant middle-aged man in a Taoist robe appeared in front of the old man, and said calmly, "Where is it?" The old man's eyes flashed as he said slowly, "Old god cult. A little guy called Lei Ling has inherited the great immortal culling art, and obtained the immortal culling sword." The elegant middle-aged man replied. "The immortal culling sword must be retrieved. Once we have the immortal culling sword, we can locate the whereabouts of the immortal exterminating sword. Send someone to negotiate with the old god cult. No matter what price we have to pay, we have to retrieve the immortal culling sword." The old man said slowly. What if the old god cult is unwilling to return the immortal culling sword? The elegant middle-aged man asked. Unwilling? Haha, if they are unwilling, then they will be enemies with the Heavenspan Immortal sect. In the upcoming Immortal Demon Conference, don't blame the Heavenspan Immortal sect for killing all the disciples of the old god cult. The old man said coldly. Yes. The elegant middle-aged man nodded, turned around and floated away. The immortal culling sword has appeared, and the immortal exterminating sword is not far away. In the era of great battles, only with the Heavenspan 4 immortal swords in hand can the Heavenspan Immortal sect have the right to speak in the immortal dynasty. We don't have much time left. The old man muttered to himself and slowly closed his eyes. After he closed his eyes, the sword chi that filled the sky slowly dissipated. The sky was clear, and everything returned to normal. It was as if the scene of thousands of swords saluting had never happened. In the central region of the immortal world, the eternal immortal dynasty sat in the center, controlling the 8 barren lands and commanding hundreds of millions of creatures. It was the master of countless creatures in the immortal world. In a palace of the eternal immortal dynasty, a young man in black armor stood respectfully. Your Highness, the immortal culling sword has appeared. The young man in armor reported. At the head of the palace, a shadow sat cross-legged. His whole body was shrouded in bright immortal light, looking mysterious and unfathomable. However, his eyes seemed to be able to see through the past and the future, wise and mysterious. The immortal culling sword? Who has it? A faint voice reverberated in the palace. The immortal culling sword is in the hands of a man called Lei Ling from the old god sect. Lei Ling is an immortal venerable, and has cultivated the 9 levels of the purple cloud art. He is suspected to have an affair with Saintess Yin Shi of the old god sect. The young man in armor seemed to know Lei Ling like the back of his hand and introduced him. Lei Ling? Interesting. With the immortal culling sword appearing, I'm afraid the Heavenspan Immortal sect can't sit still. Pass down a decree and ask Lei Ling if he's willing to become my follower. It's the honor of countless geniuses in the immortal world to become your follower. What does Lei Ling do to deserve it? He'll definitely agree. The young man in armor had a look of envy in his eyes. Whether he agrees or not, the immortal culling sword cannot fall into the hands of the Heavenspan Immortal sect. Do you understand? Your subordinate understands. Good. You may go. Yes. The young man in armor respectfully left the palace and received the decree. He left the eternal immortal dynasty and headed in the direction of the old god sect. Chapter 2966. Ancient Divine Tao State. This was where the ancient god cult was located. The ancient god Taoist state was billions of miles wide, and there were billions of creatures living there. All of them were followers of the ancient god cult. Ling Xiao discovered that the ancient Divine Tao prefecture looked primitive and ancient. Mountain ranges rose and fell continuously, and ancient trees towered into the sky. It retained its primitive state, as if it was from an ancient mythological period. Everything in the ancient Divine Tao province seemed savage and ancient. The creatures here were divided into tribes, and they resided by mountains and rivers. They wore bee-skin linen clothes, and all of their bodies were incomparably powerful. They maintained their most primitive state. The living beings of the ancient divine Taoist state all called themselves descendants of the god race, and were extremely repulsed by the immortal race. Ling Xiao and Madame Fu Yao arrived at the ancient god state, and headed towards the ancient god cult. After refining a large amount of immortal substance, Ling Xiao could feel that his life source was getting stronger and stronger. Even though he had yet to break through to the immortal monarch realm, Ling Xiao could sense that he was getting closer and closer to that realm. This was Ling Xiao's second time coming to the ancient god Taoist state. To be exact, the first time was Lei Ling. Therefore, Ling Xiao felt that the ancient god Taoist state was both unfamiliar and familiar. Following Ling Xiao were Xian Tian Immortal Lord and Shi Tian Taoist. The other person was Xie Wushuang. To be exact, Xie Wushuang had already become Madame Fu Yao's disciple. In the Battle of the Immortal Ancient City, the Shi family was destroyed and the Jie family became the biggest winner. Madame Fu Yao handed the immortal ancient city over to the Jie family to control. In order to show his loyalty to the old god cult, Xie Miexing asked Xie Wushuang to become Madame Fu Yao's disciple and go to the old god cult. Xie Wushuang had never been to the ancient god cult, so she was very curious about everything in the ancient god Taoist state. The ancient god cult was located in the ancient god mountain range. In the mountain range, there was a majestic city known as the God City. The architectural style of the old god sect was very rough. Palaces and buildings were built with huge stones, which gave off an aura of great craftsmanship. It was completely different from the exquisite, perfect, and heavenly palace of the 9 immortal sections. However, the strength of the ancient god cult couldn't be underestimated, especially the ancient god cult master. Although he had been in seclusion for countless years, he was like a stabilizing needle that had intimidated many experts. No one doubted that the ancient god cult master was already an exceptional immortal king. The most important thing was whether the ancient god cult master had validated his Tao and become an emperor. If the ancient god cult master were to become an emperor, the situation in the immortal world would change drastically. Greetings, madam. Welcome back to the divine sect. Outside the mountain gate of the ancient god cult, more than 10 patrolling disciples of the ancient god cult came up to greet them. Their eyes were full of respect and fanaticism. During the years when the ancient god cult master was in seclusion, Madame Fu Yao was the substitute cult master of the ancient god cult. She was in charge of the ancient god cult. All the disciples, deacons, elders, and grand elders of the ancient god cult respected Madame Fu Yao and listened to her orders. Therefore, Madame Fu Yao had absolute authority in the old god cult. Of course, Ling Xiao knew that Yunqi Saintis had a strong enmity towards Madame Fu Yao. There were also some elders and disciples in the ancient god cult who were loyal to Yunqi Saintis. However, they were only a small part of the power and did not affect the overall situation. During the years when Madame Fu Yao was in charge of the old god cult, the cult's power grew stronger and stronger. There were more and more experts in the cult, and they were not at a disadvantage when fighting against the 9 immortal sects. The 6 great evil god sects that the immortal race spoke of were originally independent, and had even attacked each other. However, the old god cult had now become the leader of the 6 great evil god sects. The Holy Light cult, Blood god cult, Destruction god cult, Creation god cult, and Battle god cult were all led by the old god cult on the surface. Rise all of you, Madame Fu Yao said faintly with a dignified expression. Although she was beautiful and peerless, she had the aura of a superior at the moment. She was so high up that no one could get close to her. Whoosh! Just then a figure with a strong aura came across the sky. He looked wild and unruly and appeared in front of Madame Fu Yao in an instant. It was a tall and sturdy man dressed in black armor. His muscles were knotted together, and he was filled with explosive power. His hair danced in the wind, and his eyes were like lightning, filled with aggression. His strength was incomparably powerful. The burly man knelt on one knee in front of Madame Fu Yao. His eyes were filled with joy as he said, "Greetings, mistress. Mistress, you're finally back. The envoys from the other 5 great evil god sects are here. Junior sister Yunqi is injured." The burly man's words were nonsensical. However, when Madame Fu Yao heard it, her eyes turned cold and revealed a trace of murderous intent. Why is Yunqi injured? Madame Fu Yao's words contained a trace of murderous intent. Mistress, the envoys from the 5 great evil god sects are here. The saints and saintesses from the 5 great evil god sects are here too. Junior sister Yunqi fought with Ming Xi and Saintess from the Holy Light cult and was injured. The burly man said respectfully. Holy Light cult? How dare they? I'll go and meet them. Zhougan, this is Jie Wushuang, my new disciple. And Lei Ling, you should be familiar with him. Settle them down temporarily, Madame Fu Yao said coldly. In an instant, she leaped up and plunged into the depths of the old god cult. Yes, mistress. The burly man bowed at Madame Fu Yao's back. Then he turned around and looked at Ling Xiao. He grinned and revealed a cold smile. Lei Ling, long time no see. Yes, long time no see. Holy Sun Zhougan is still as elegant as ever. Your cultivation has improved. Ling Xiao took a deep look at Zhou Qian, then looked straight at him and smiled. Zhou Gan was the pro-disciple of the ancient god cult master, Gu Tongtian. He was also the holy son of the ancient god cult. Zhou Gan's cultivation was unfathomable. He was already at the second heaven of the Lord Immortal Realm, and had condensed the ancient god body of origin. He was extremely powerful. When Lei Ling was in the ancient god cult, he was often bullied by Zhou Gan. It was mainly because Zhou Gan was in love with Saintess Yunqi and wanted to marry her. However, Saintess Yunqi was deeply in love with Lei Ling, which made Zhou Gan jealous. If not for Saintess Yunqi's protection, Lei Ling would have been killed by Zhou Gan many times. However, from Lei Ling's memory, it could be seen that Lei Ling was extremely fearful of Zhou Gan. It could be said that he was afraid and hated Zhou Gan. Zhou Gan was a little surprised. Previously, when Lei Ling saw him, he was like a mouse seeing a mouse. But now he was not afraid at all. He looked calm and indifferent, which made Zhou Gan very unhappy. Although he found that Lei Ling's cultivation had reached the Celestial Master Realm, he still did not take him seriously. However, Lei Ling's expression made him very unhappy. Lei Ling, although I don't know how you made Mistress forgive your sins, you'd better behave yourself in the old god cult. If I find out that you have done something that is detrimental to the old god cult, don't blame me for being merciless. Zhou Gan sneered. A powerful aura suppressed Ling Xiao. It contained an unparalleled emperor's aura. Peak. Chapter 2967. This was a show of strength and also a declaration of sovereignty. Zhou Qian was telling Ling Xiao that he was the real master of the ancient god cult. Clang. As if sensing the threat, the eyes of the Xiantian immortal lord behind Ling Xiao flashed. In an instant, a vast sword intent erupted from her body. It contained an aura that could annihilate everything. It was extremely sharp. Rumble. The vast sword Dao aura pressed down, causing the void in all directions to rumble. It was like a surging wave that covered the sky and covered the earth. Zhou Qian's face changed and turned pale. He took 2 steps back, and his eyes were filled with deep fear. Who are you? Zhou Qian stared at the profound heaven immortal master, and asked. He felt a terrifying sword essence from the profound heaven immortal master, which made him feel a great threat. She's my maid. Ling Xiao smiled faintly and reached out to hold the profound heaven immortal master's arm, indicating that there was no need to fight. The terrifying sword essence on the profound heaven immortal master slowly withdrew. Jie Wushuang and Shitian Daoist both rolled their eyes and cursed in their hearts. Ling Xiao was really courting death. This was the profound heaven immortal master, the most dazzling immortal master in the immortal realm tens of millions of years ago. Ling Xiao didn't even bat an eyelid, and said that the profound heaven immortal master was his maid. If the profound heaven immortal master woke up, he would be the first to kill Ling Xiao. Maid. Zhou Qian's face turned even uglier. He was not very clear about the things that happened in the immortal ancient city, so he did not know the identity of the profound heaven immortal master. However, this woman looked very terrifying and powerful, which made him somewhat uncertain. Humph. Come with me. Zhou Qian snorted coldly. He did not even have the mood to talk with Jie Wushuang, and leaped up with a gloomy face. Ling Xiao smiled faintly and did not take it seriously. He followed Zhou Qian and flew into the ancient god cult. Ling Xiao felt that the ancient god cult was both familiar and unfamiliar. The ancient god cult was built in the ancient god mountains, and had millions of disciples. Most of them lived in the ancient god mountains. However, Ling Xiao knew that the real core of the ancient god cult was the ancient god world. It was said that it was the inner world left behind by an emperor god of the ancient god cult. Previously, Lei Ling had entered the ancient god world because of his special relationship with Madame Fuyao and Saintess Yunqi. The ancient god world contained extremely rich origin energy and boundless immortal substance. The speed of cultivation inside was hundreds or thousands of times faster than outside. The ancient god world was the real foundation of the ancient god cult. Naturally, Zhou Qian could not arrange for Ling Xiao and Xie Wushuang to enter the ancient god world. Instead, he arranged for them to stay in the guest courtyard of the ancient god cult. Initially, Zhou Qian wanted to teach Ling Xiao a lesson. However, With the presence of the Xiantian Immortal Lord, he decided against it. After settling them down, he turned and left. The emissaries of the 5 divine religions came to the ancient god cult. Could it be for the Immortal Demon Conference? Ling Zhao's eyes flashed as he muttered to himself. During this time, he had a rough idea of the powers in the immortal realm. In the immortal realm, the immortal tribe was naturally the strongest. They had the 9 great immortal sects, which had a legacy of hundreds of millions of years, and had survived countless eras. It was rare for an immortal emperor to appear in the immortal realm, but in the 9 great immortal sects, they were very common. However, above the 9 great immortal sects, there was a behemoth, the Eternal Immortal Dynasty. The immortal emperor of the Eternal Immortal Dynasty was a true immortal emperor. His strength was unfathomable, and he suppressed the Eternal Immortal Dynasty, making it the strongest power in the immortal realm. Even the sect leaders of the 9 great immortal sects were nominally conferred titles by the Eternal Immortal Dynasty. Ling Xiao even suspected that the Immortal Highness he had met before was a prince of the Eternal Immortal Dynasty. Other than the immortal tribe, there were also the descendants of the divine tribe, who were content to stay in a corner of the world. For some reason, the immortal tribe did not completely exterminate the descendants of the divine tribe. Instead, they allowed the descendants of the divine tribe to flourish, and there were even the 6 great immortal sects. The 6 major divine sects and the 9 major immortal sects had been fighting nonstop. On the surface, it seemed that the 6 major divine sects were on par with each other. The so-called Immortal Demon Conference was a grand event between the 6 divine sects and the 9 immortal sects. It could also be said to be a great battle. In the immortal world, there was a forbidden place called the Immortal Demon Grotto. According to legends, the Immortal Demon Grotto was a place where emperors fought. Strange laws and chaotic source energy interweaved there, forming a space of its own. It was incomparably dangerous. Even a high immortal would face the risk of death if they were to enter the Immortal Demon Cave. The 6 divine sects and the 9 immortal sects had an agreement. Every 10,000 years, there would be an immortal devil gathering in the Immortal Devil Grotto. Both sides would send their strongest disciples into the Immortal Devil Grotto to fight. At the same time, they would comprehend the source of the Great Tao and search for treasures. In the end, the side with the most survivors would win. If the 6 divine sects won, the 9 immortal sects would have to hand over the 6 Tao prefectures to the 6 divine sections. If they lost, they would have to hand over the 6 Tao prefectures. Over the years, the 6 divine sects had lost more than they won. Their territories were constantly shrinking, and their strength was getting weaker and weaker. On the other hand, the 9 divine sects were getting stronger and stronger. Counting the time, 1,000,000 years had passed. The Immortal Devil Gathering was about to begin. The Immortal Devil Gathering was hosted by the Eternal Immortal Dynasty. The 6 divine sects and the 9 divine sects had to participate. Although the 6 divine sects had their own conflicts, they had to unite and stay united in the face of the Immortal Devil Gathering. Immortal Devil Gathering? I heard that the Immortal Devil Gathering is extremely cruel. Less than 10% of the people who entered came out alive. However, if they could come out of the Immortal Demon Grotto, their cultivation would definitely increase greatly. Xie Wushuang said slowly. Fairy Wushuang, have you heard of the Myriad Tao Mountain? Ling Xiao suddenly thought of something and asked Xie Wushuang. Myriad Tao Mountain? The Immortal Demon Grotto is in the Myriad Tao Mountain. The Myriad Tao Mountain is a forbidden area in the immortal world. The Immortal Demon Grotto is the forbidden area of the Myriad Tao Mountain. Xie Wushuang said slowly. The Immortal Demon Grotto is in the Myriad Tao Mountain? Ling Zhao's eyes shone brightly. His heart was suddenly enlightened. He had heard about the Myriad Tao Mountain from the Emperor of the Kuanwu Mountain. However, Lei Ling did not seem to know about it. If the Immortal Demon Grotto was in the Myriad Tao Mountain, everything would be explained. No wonder the Emperor of the Kuanwu Mountain had said that the Myriad Tao Mountain was filled with Taos, origins, and chaotic laws. It was a sacred place to comprehend the great Tao origins. It was also the place where countless people in the immortal world wanted to break through to the immortal realm. It seems like my opportunity to break through to the Emperor realm will be in the Immortal Devil Gathering this time. Ling Xiao thought to himself. In the immortal world, he had been using the heaven-devouring secret skill to devour the immortal world's immortal substance. However, his speed of comprehending the great Tao origins was still not fast. At his current speed, it would take him at least 10,000 years to break through to the Emperor realm. This was why the geniuses in the divine world could improve their cultivation rapidly before the heavenly venerable realm. However, the heavenly venerable realm could stagnate for tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of years. It was too difficult to break through to the Emperor realm. The immortal demon grotto in the myriad Tao mountain gave Ling Xiao hope. This was also the opportunity that the Emperor of the Kuan-Wu mountain had mentioned. Therefore, Ling Xiao decided that no matter what, he would participate in the immortal devil gathering this time. Chapter 2968. Ancient Shrine. Madame Fuyao sat at the head of the table. Her expression was dignified, and she exuded a powerful aura. Below her sat 5 figures with powerful auras. There were both men and women, and they all had different expressions as they looked at Madame Fuyao. Madam, we have endured humiliation for so many years, but the child of God has yet to appear. I'm afraid the child of God will not appear again. Now that the 9 major immortal sects are eyeing us covetously, and the eternal immortal dynasty wants to be the aureole, we must unite. An old man with white hair and beard sighed softly. He was the grand elder of the divine light religion, Cheng Kai-dai. The remaining 4 were the supreme elders of the other 4 sections. They were Blood Shadow, supreme elder of the divine blood sect; Xiong Wu, supreme elder of the destruction sect; Zhao Yan, supreme elder of the creation sect; and Zhan Feng, supreme elder of the Aries sect. That's right. We have followed the will of the great emperor of Tongtian, and waited for the child of God to descend. But after a few eras, the child of God has yet to appear. This time, the eternal emperor road is about to open. The immortals will not tolerate us any longer. We must save ourselves. We can't just sit there and wait for the immortals to completely annihilate us. The most hot-tempered grand elder of the divine destruction religion, Xiong Tianwu, said in a muffled voice. That's right. We must save ourselves. The immortal demon conference is about to begin. I'm afraid many of our disciples will die, and our efforts will be in vain for the immortals. We can't just sit there and wait for death. We must find a way to fight back. Blood Shadow nodded and said, the old god cult is the most powerful one among the 6 god cults. Sect leader Tongtian should have come out by now, right? As long as he comes out of seclusion, our 6 divine sects will still have hope in this immortal demon gathering. Zhao Yan also asked, save ourselves? How could he save himself? Do we have a new divine emperor in the 6 religions? Or do we have the strength to fight against the immortals? Madame Fuyao sneered. Looking at the people from the 5 major divine sects, Madame Fuyao sneered in her heart. Just a bunch of mobs. Now you know how to be anxious? The Immortal Demon Conference was an opportunity, but it was also a disaster. In every Immortal Demon Conference, the disciples of the 6 major sects would always die the most. On the contrary, the disciples of the 9 major immortal sects would stand out from the rest. There were geniuses who had comprehended the origin of the great Tao. Now that the Immortal Devil Conference was about to arrive, the people of the 5 divine sects could no longer sit still. However, after so many years of shouting the slogan of fighting against the Immortal Clan, the 6 divine sects were still suppressed by the Immortal Clan. They didn't have any hope at all. On the surface, the immortal race only had one immortal emperor, the Immortal Emperor, but according to what Fuyao knew, there were at least 4 immortal emperors in the immortal race. As for the number of immortal emperors hiding in the dark, no one knew how many of them there were. After all, the immortals had existed since the beginning of the epoch. For the past 108 epochs, the immortals had sealed the immortal world and extracted the immortal substance from the myriad worlds. Therefore, they were almost unaffected by the epic calamity. Even if some immortal emperors had fallen in the past 108 epochs, how many immortal emperors were there? Fuyao's heart trembled when she thought of this. Even if one immortal emperor appeared in each epoch, the immortal clan should have 108 immortal emperors by now. This was a power so terrifying that it made people despair. Fuyao, we descendants of the God clan are indeed too weak, much weaker than the immortal clan. But if it weren't for the despicable immortal clan, our God clan would be the ruler of the myriad worlds. Lord Skyren Divine Emperor told us that the Son of God would descend, but we've waited until now, and the Son of God hasn't appeared. We can't wait any longer. We must take the initiative to attack. Zhang Feng said slowly. Take the initiative to attack? How do you want to take the initiative to attack? Fuyao said expressionlessly. That's the purpose of our trip. Fuyao, we want to open the Hall of Gods. The 5 Grand Elders looked at each other, then Chen Kaitai said. Open the Hall of Gods? Don't even think about it. Only the Son of God can enter the Hall of Gods. This is the ironclad rule left behind by Lord Skyren Divine Emperor. Everyone must abide by it. Fuyao's expression changed when she heard their words, and her face was as cold as ice. The Hall of Gods was the ultimate secret of the 6 great divine sects. The origins of the Hall of Gods were untraceable, and could even be traced back to the First Era. Legend had it that it contained the mystery of the God clan's origin and ultimate power. Many people didn't know that the Skyren Great Emperor had walked out of the Hall of Gods, and then became a dazzling existence in the immortal world. But unfortunately, the Skyrend Great Emperor had fallen in the end. However, the Skyrend Great Emperor had given the key to the Hall of Gods to the 6 great divine sects, and told them to wait for the arrival of the Son of God. Only the Son of God could enter the Hall of Gods. Only the Son of God could save the descendants of the God clan, and restore the glory of the God clan from the ancient times. Fuyao was furious when she heard that they were plotting against the Hall of Gods. Fuyao, you should understand why we descendants of the God clan are so weak now. It's because our fortune has been completely taken away by the immortal world, and we are only descendants without the purest bloodline of the God clan. So no matter how much we cultivate, there's no way to reverse our fate. But the Hall of Gods can. The Hall of Gods contains the mystery of the God clan's origin. Once we enter the Hall of Gods, the bloodline of the God clan's descendants can revert to their ancestors, and completely transform into the true God clan. Since the Son of God hasn't come, we'll create one ourselves. Chung Kaitai said slowly, with a hint of madness in his eyes. Create a Son of God? What a crazy idea. Fuyao was also shocked by Chung Kaitai's idea, and she smiled bitterly. But when she saw the look in Chung Kaitai's eyes, she knew that they had already discussed it, and the 5 great divine sects had agreed to this idea. That was why they had come to the old God sect today. They were here to force her to abdicate. Not just one Son of God, but 10, no 100 Sons of God. When the Hall of Gods opens, there are 108 deity positions inside, which means that a total of 108 people can enter. If these 108 people can revert to their ancestors and become true gods, they will definitely lead the God clan to rise in the future and reclaim the glory that belongs to the God clan. Bloodshadow's eyes also revealed a hint of fanaticism. Fuyao, we're doing this for the entire God clan, not for ourselves. After entering the Hall of Gods, their cultivation will increase greatly. At that time, during the Immortal Demon Conference, they will definitely be able to sweep through all the heroes and kill all the geniuses of the immortal world. If they obtain enough opportunities in the Immortal Demon Cave, their cultivation will increase by leaps and bounds. And in time, they will definitely become peerless emperors. It's even possible for them to affirm their Tao and become an emperor. They are the seeds of our God clan, and also the future and hope of our God clan. Zhang Feng said with incomparable sincerity. Chapter 2969. Madame Fuyao fell silent. Although the idea of the 5 divine sects was a little crazy, she was indeed moved. The 6 divine sects had been waiting for the Son of God for countless years, and they were on the brink of despair. Every time the Immortal Demon Conference was held, a large number of geniuses from the 6 major sects were killed by the geniuses of the Immortal Demon Cave. In the end, all of them became stepping stones for the immortal tribe. Now another immortal demon meet was about to begin. Madame Fuyao had a feeling that this might be the last immortal demon meet. There was enough immortal demon blood, and the eternal emperor's road was about to open. Where was the hope of the immortals? Was it that ethereal son of God? No, the hope of the immortals was in their own hands. It had to be said that Madame Fuyao had been persuaded by them. But were they really going to defy the Grandmaster Emperor's iron law and open the Hall of the Gods? The Grandmaster Emperor had once said that only the Son of God could enter the Hall of the Gods. Madam, the eternal immortal dynasty will also send people to this immortal demon meet. Zhang Feng said slowly. The eternal immortal dynasty? They finally couldn't resist coming down personally? Madame Fuyao's entire body shook, and her eyes revealed a trace of shock. Zhang Feng's words were the last straw that broke the camel's back. Madame Fuyao could no longer remain calm. I cannot decide whether to open the Hall of the Gods. After I report this to the sect leader, he will make the decision. Everyone, stay in the old god sect for the time being and wait for his reply. Madame Fuyao looked deeply at the crowd. Thank you, madam. Madam, please believe that everything we do is for the sake of the immortals, not for personal gain. The eyes of the 5 supreme elders were filled with incomparable joy. Then their expressions were incomparably solemn as they bowed towards Madame Fuyao and said, I'll say the ugly words first. If the sect leader doesn't agree, then don't even think about opening the Hall of the Gods. Madame Fuyao said flatly, We understand. The 5 supreme elders nodded their heads in agreement. Now that we've talked about the Hall of the Gods, shall we talk about Saintess Yunxi? Your radiant god sect's bright heart Saintess injured Saintess Yunxi. What should we do about this? Madame Fuyao's gaze fell on Qing Kaitai. Madam, the two of them were just sparring. They didn't intentionally bully Saintess Yunxi. This is the divine light pill of the divine light cult. I am willing to offer it to the Saintess of Cloud Stream to help her heal. Qing Kaitai smiled bitterly. Then he took out a crystal-like jade bottle from his sleeve. Inside the bottle was a radiant and colorful pill. Although it was separated by the pill bottle, it still emitted a dazzling light, like a small sun. Qing Kaitai took out the radiant divine pellet with a pained expression in his eyes. Radiant divine pill? All right, I accept your apology on behalf of Saintess Yunxi. Madame Fuyao's eyes also revealed a trace of surprise. The radiant divine pill was the most precious pill of the radiant god cult. It contained a trace of the radiant origin. It was the most supreme healing pill in the immortal world. It could revive the dead and was extremely precious. Moreover, the radiant divine pellet could increase the chances of an immortal venerable breaking through to the immortal monarch realm. Even in the radiant god cult it was rare. Madame Fuyao did not expect Qing Kaitai to take out the radiant divine pill directly. As for why the Saintess of Cloud Stream and the Tranquil Heart Saintess fought, Madame Fuyao already knew. It was all because of Lei Ling. Because of Lei Ling's bad reputation, the Tranquil Heart Saintess also despised him. However, the Saintess of Cloud Stream was deeply in love with Lei Ling. The two of them fought because of Lei Ling. However, the Saintess of Cloud Stream was not a match for the Tranquil Heart Saintess, so she was slightly injured. Madame Fuyao did not care at first. She deliberately brought it up to express her dissatisfaction. Qing Kaitai also understood, so he took out the radiant divine pill. Madam, there is one more thing that I would like to ask for your permission. Zhang Feng's eyes suddenly flashed and he smiled slightly. What is it? Madame Fuyao said lightly. Something good. My son, Zhang Chen, has been deeply in love with the Saintess of Cloud Stream ever since he met her. Therefore, I would like to propose marriage on behalf of Zhang Chen. I hope that Madam can betroth the Saintess to Zhang Chen. Zhang Feng smiled slightly. Propose marriage? A strange look appeared in Madame Fuyao's eyes. Although the matter between Lei Ling and the Saintess of Cloud Stream was not publicized, the few old foxes present should know about it. They knew that the Saintess of Cloud Stream was deeply in love with Lei Ling, but they still wanted to propose marriage? Madam, if you are worried about Lei Ling, then it's fine. Zhang Chen already knows about Lei Ling, so he is willing to compete with Lei Ling fairly. Zhang Feng smiled slightly. Madam, Lei Ling is not a good match. He is from the immortal tribe, so he is not on the same side as us descendants of the deity tribe. Zhang Chen is the holy son of the war god sect, and he is extremely talented. How can Lei Ling be compared to Zhang Chen? The blood shadow was a lady in a crimson robe. She sneered coldly when she heard the words. That's right. Madam, those who are not of our tribe have different intentions. Lei Ling might be a spy from the 9 major immortal sects. Letting him stay in the old god sect is a disaster, not a blessing. Chung Kaitai also tried to persuade her. You want Zhanchen to marry the Saintess of Cloud Stream? I have no objections as long as Cloud Stream agrees. How about this? Let Zhanchen and Lei Ling fight, and I will betroth the Saintess of Cloud Stream to whoever wins. How about that? Madame Fuyao's eyes moved as she smiled. Although she had agreed to open the Hall of Gods, she was still unhappy with the way the 5 major immortal sects were forcing her to abdicate. Furthermore, the War God sect wanted to marry the Saintess of Cloud Stream? Although Madame Fuyao was unhappy with the Saintess of Cloud Stream, she was still the daughter of the sect master, so she could not agree to such a thing. Either way, he would let Ling Xiao take action to teach that Mu Chen a lesson and vent his anger. Let Zhanchen and Lei Ling fight? Madam, are you sure? Zhanchen's cultivation has just broken through to the 2nd heaven of the immortal sovereign realm, and Lei Ling is at most a celestial sovereign, right? He is not Zhanchen's opponent. Zhan Feng was slightly stunned. It's fine. If he can't defeat Zhanchen, then he has no right to be with Cloudstream. That's it. Madame Fuyao said faintly. What a joke, with the great culling immortal art and the celestial culling sword. How could he not defeat Mu Chen? Madame Fuyao was clearer than anyone about Lei Ling's current strength. Lei Ling had displayed his extraordinary strength in the battle of the immortal ancient city, but the 5 supreme elders did not know about it. At that time, Mu Chen would probably cry. Thinking about it, Madame Fuyao felt a sense of pleasure in her heart. /book_62507/L Chapter 2970. Brother Lei Ling, I missed you so much. In the courtyard of the outer sect, the door opened, and a beautiful woman in a black muslin dress flew in gracefully, throwing herself into Ling Xiao's arms. It was Saintess Yin Shi. The news that Ling Xiao and Madame Fuyao had returned to the ancient god cult quickly reached Saintess Yin Shi's ears. Hence, she came to the outer courtyard immediately. With a soft and warm body in his arms, Ling Xiao caressed the Saintess's skin that was like white jade. He knew that something was wrong, but on the surface, he could only hold the Saintess in his arms. Yin Shi, I missed you too. Ling Xiao held Yin Shi's face with both hands and looked at her affectionately. Then he kissed her red lips. Saintess Yin Shi's body trembled slightly. Her long eyelashes fluttered and her face was flushed. She looked shy, but her eyes were filled with joy and sweetness. Brother Lei Ling, were you caught by that bitch this time? Did she do anything to you? Saintess Yin Shi asked worriedly. Don't worry. I helped Madam win the battle of Immortal Ancient City. It's considered redeeming myself. Madam will let bygones be bygones. Ling Xiao said with a smile. Then you and her. Saintess Yin Shi said hesitantly. Don't worry. The only one I love is you. From now on, I have nothing to do with her anymore. When sect leader comes out of seclusion, I'll propose marriage to him. Ling Xiao said seriously. Brother Lei Ling, you're so nice. Saintess Yin Shi's eyes were sparkling. She could not help but throw herself into Ling Xiao's arms again. You despicable immortal, let go of Yin Shi. Suddenly, a voice filled with anger was heard. A few figures with powerful auras walked in. There were both men and women. Their eyes were like lightning and they exuded an aura of superiority. The one who spoke was a young man wearing dark golden armor. He was tall and had a handsome face. His black hair danced wildly in the wind, making him look wild and unruly. His expression was arrogant, and his eyes were like lightning, containing a strong sense of aggression. His cultivation had reached the celestial monarch realm. Among the 5 young men and women, it was obvious that this young man was the leader. His face was gloomy and his eyes were cold. He stared at Ling Xiao and the Saintess with an ugly expression. Who are you? Ling Xiao's eyes flickered as he said indifferently. The cultivation of these 5 people had all reached the high immortal realm. Ling Xiao had already vaguely guessed their identities. They should be the holy sons and holy daughters of the 5 divine sects. Zhanchen, what are you trying to do? Who told you to come here? Yunqi Saintis looked at the young man in dark golden armor and said coldly, Zhan Chun, the holy son of the war god sect. Yunqi, Lei Ling is just a lowly immortal. He must be up to no good when he sneaked into the ancient god cult. He doesn't deserve you. Let me help you kill him. Zhan Chun said coldly. His eyes were filled with jealousy and killing intent. It could be said that he had fallen in love with Saintess Yunqi at first sight. Although Zhan Chun had heard of the rumors about Saintess Yunqi and Lei Ling, he didn't care. Now that he saw Saintess Yunqi and Lei Ling together with his own eyes, Zhan Chun's heart burned with jealousy and anger. Zhan Chun, who I want to be with has nothing to do with you. I've said it before. I don't like you. I like brother Lei Ling. Please get out. Saintess Yunqi stood in front of Ling Xiao and said coldly. After hearing what Saintess Yunqi said, Zhan Chen's face turned pale and green. He was incomparably furious. Lei Ling, do you only know how to hide behind women? If you're a man, come out and fight with me. Yunqi, you've been deceived by this pretty boy's flowery words. I've already proposed marriage to Madame Fu Yao, and she has agreed to marry you to me. Zhan Chen stared at Ling Xiao and said coldly, I make my own decisions about my marriage. No one can make the decision for me. Zhan Chen, you're already an immortal lord. Brother Lei Ling is only an immortal supremacy. How dare you challenge him? Saintess Yunqi said coldly. Zhan Chen, right? Yunqi and I love each other. Why are you being jealous here? Don't be noisy here. Get out of here. Otherwise, I'll beat you up until your father can't recognize you. Ling Xiao smiled slightly, revealing a mouthful of white teeth. Arrogant. Too arrogant. The other holy sons and holy daughters looked at each other with strange expressions. They had been waiting to watch a good show, but now they looked at each other with strange expressions. Isn't this Ling Xiao a little too arrogant? He's just an immortal supremacy, and he dares to say that he wants to teach Zhan Chen a lesson? In terms of combat strength, Zhan Chen was the strongest among the 5 of them. Otherwise, they wouldn't have been convinced by Zhan Chen. The God tribe had always spoken with their strength. They were very direct and weren't as hypocritical as the immortal tribe. Beat me? Aha. I really don't know where you get your confidence from. Lei Ling, if you're a man, come and fight with me. If you win, I'll give Saintess Yunqi to you. If you lose, get out of here quickly. Saintess Yunqi belongs to me. How about that? Zhan Chen laughed coldly. His eyes were like lightning, and a powerful aura was emitted from his body. Zhan Chen, you bastard. Saintess Yunqi was furious. What did Zhan Chen take her for? Merchandise? Saintess Yunqi hated Zhan Chen even more. However, Zhan Chen acted as if he didn't know. He said to Yunqi, Yunqi, don't be angry. Later, I'll teach this gigolo a lesson and let you see his true colors. Those flowery words of his are all lies. Get out. Saintess Yunqi scolded. Zhan Chen, it's not impossible for you to fight with me. However, Saintess Yunqi isn't merchandise. How can I decide to give her up just because of a single battle? I won't give up on her. How about this? If I win, you'll be my follower. If I lose, I'll be your follower. How about that? Ling Xiao said with a smile. He actually agreed with Zhan Chen's words. Lei Ling was indeed a gigolo. He only knew how to use flowery words to deceive innocent girls. In reality, he was a bastard. However, that was the Lei Ling of the past. The current Lei Ling was Ling Xiao. Zhan Chen scolding Lei Ling was naturally scolding Ling Xiao. However, Ling Xiao could faintly feel an extremely familiar aura from Zhan Chen's body. Could it be that the War God sect has some relationship with the War God Hall? Ling Xiao thought to himself as his heart skipped a beat. Follower? Sure. Lei Ling, if you lose, I'll take good care of you. Zhan Chen laughed coldly. He only thought about it for a moment before agreeing. If Ling Xiao were to become his follower, he would be able to trample on Ling Xiao however he wanted. Chapter 2971. When he thought about how this pretty boy would be completely subdued by him, Zhan Chen felt extremely satisfied. He had never thought that he would lose. If he could not defeat Ling Xiao, who was only an immortal supremacy, with his cultivation at the second heaven of the Lord Immortal Realm, He should commit suicide as an apology. Can I use a weapon? Ling Xiao asked with a smile. Weapon? Of course you can. You can use any weapon you want. For the sake of fairness, I won't use any weapon. This way, you will be convinced, right? Zhang Chen laughed coldly as a look of disdain appeared in his eyes. When he heard that Ling Xiao was going to use a weapon, he looked down on Ling Xiao. The strongest thing about the God clan was their physical body. Therefore, Zhang Chen's body was his strongest weapon. He did not need any weapon at all. At this moment, Xia Wushuang and the sky-devouring rat were looking at Zhang Chen as though they were looking at a fool. This silly child. I'm afraid she's going to cry later. Brother Lei Ling, you are not his match. Don't listen to him. This battle is not fair. Yunqi Saintis said worriedly. Don't worry, Yunqi. For you, I will win this battle. Ling Xiao looked at Yunqi Saintis affectionately. Then you must be careful. Yunqi Saintis hugged Ling Xiao emotionally and kissed him on the cheek. This made Zhang Chen so angry that his veins were popping out. Bitch. Zhang Chen cursed in his heart. Swoosh. 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 At this moment, several figures with powerful auras appeared in the sky. They were Madame Fuyao and the 5 Supreme Elders. Lei Ling, if you win the battle with Zhang Chen, not only will I marry Yunqi to you, but I will also make you the holy son of the old god cult. If you lose, you will have to leave the old god cult. Do you understand? Madame Fuyao said as she looked at Ling Xiao. Her words shocked everyone. The holy son of the old god cult. In the current old god cult, the holy son was Zhou Gan, and the saintess was Yunqi. The holy son of the ancient god cult represented the possibility of competing for the position of the hierarch of the ancient god cult. It could be said that the holy son of the ancient god cult was second only to one person, and above tens of thousands of people. However, Lei Ling was from the immortal clan. How could he become the holy son of the ancient god cult? Although everyone was puzzled, they didn't say anything. Because as far as they were concerned, there was absolutely no suspense in this battle, and Ling Xiao would lose without a doubt. Haha. With Madame as a witness, I naturally have no objections. Lei Ling, if you lose, not only do you have to leave the ancient god cult, but you also have to become my servant and follower. Do you understand? Zhang Chen laughed, his gaze sharp and domineering. We'll talk about it after you beat me. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. With Madame Fuyao and the 5 Grand Elders as witnesses, the nature of the battle between Ling Xiao and Zhang Chen underwent a subtle change. Originally, the two of them were just fighting for the Cloudstream Saintess. But now it was like a duel between the old god cult and the battle god cult. The two cults were secretly exerting their strength, and it was considered a practice and test. Ling Xiao and Zhang Chen arrived at an ancient battle platform of the old god cult. This ancient battle platform was a treasure from the ancient era. There was a dimension within it that was incomparably sturdy, capable of accommodating battles between immortal monarchs. Madame Fuyao's expression was incomparably calm, and no one could tell what she was thinking. As for the 5 Grand Elders, they had different expressions. Although they felt that Zhang Chen would definitely win this battle, they didn't know why Madame Fuyao insisted on letting Lei Ling and Zhang Chen fight. Wasn't this just asking for humiliation? Could it be that there was something special about this Lei Ling? On the ancient battle platform, Ling Xiao and Zhang Chen stood facing each other. Zhang Chen was clad in dark golden battle armor. His muscles were bulging, and he was filled with explosive strength. His eyes were like lightning, and it was as though thunder was about to burst out. The power of his flesh and blood was condensed, forming an intense rumbling sound around him. This Zhang Chen's physical body was incomparably strong. Furthermore, Ling Xiao could feel an incomparably strong battle intent from Zhang Chen. Let's fight! Zhang Chen roared in a low voice, and in an instant, he punched towards Ling Xiao. Gotcha! A strong battle intent surged in his eyes, and the blood in his body surged. Blazing divine light bloomed in the void, causing his fist to be like an immemorial divine mountain, majestically pressing down. The unparalleled fist imprint was ancient and mysterious, and even more tyrannical to the extreme. It was as though it could break apart the void with a single punch. If this wasn't the ancient battle platform, the void of the immortal world would have been directly shattered by this punch. Come at me! Ling Xiao's eyes also flashed with a strong battle intent. He didn't dodge, and also punched out with his own fist. Zhang Chen should be the first powerful god race opponent he had ever met. Ling Xiao could feel that Zhang Chen's blood was boiling. It was as though there was a small sun burning in his body, providing him with endless power. This was a kind of pure physical pressure, and it made Ling Xiao's heart sigh in admiration. Could it be? I'm really from the god race? A trace of doubt appeared in Ling Xiao's heart. He thought of his extremely strong physical body, and he thought of the god race mark in his sea of consciousness. Moreover, although Zhang Chen was scolding him, he didn't feel the slightest bit of disgust. Instead, he felt a sense of familiarity. All of this made Ling Xiao doubt his own bloodline. Rumble. The void shook violently. Ling Xiao and Zhang Chen were like two resplendent balls of light, one purple and one gold. As they violently collided, millions of rays of divine light bloomed, and the dozens of mountains in the surroundings exploded at the same time. This was the ultimate collision of physical strength. In the end, both Ling Xiao and Zhang Chen's bodies trembled, and they flew backwards at the same time. Ling Xiao didn't activate the primordial immortal body. He was afraid that Madame Fuyao and the others would notice something, so he only used his normal physical strength to fight. Even so, Ling Xiao's physical body was still extremely strong, and the two of them were evenly matched in this punch. However, Zhang Chen wasn't as calm as he looked on the surface. His eyes were filled with shock and disbelief. Your physical strength is actually so strong? Zhang Chen said with a shocked expression. Although the immortal race was strong, they were strong in their mystiques, Dao techniques, endless immortal techniques, various immortal talismans, and immortal weapons. In terms of physical strength, the immortal race couldn't be compared to the god race. This was what the god race was most proud of. But now, an immortal whose cultivation was lower than his was actually on par with him in terms of physical strength. This made Zhang Chen feel extremely humiliated. Again. Ling Xiao smiled faintly, and a strong desire to battle appeared in his eyes. He punched out again. The blood and qi around him surged, and his physical body contained an extremely strong pressure. The meridians around him lit up like the stars in Zhoutian, and bright immortal light spread out from them, intertwining with each other and forming a strange energy around him. This punch was like an avalanche, and its power was even stronger. Zhang Chen didn't dare to be careless, and his competitive spirit was also stimulated by Ling Xiao. With a roar, he charged towards Ling Xiao. Chapter 2972. King War Sovereign Fist. Zhang Chen roared in anger. Blazing divine light radiated from his body as he punched out. A gigantic fist imprint that resembled a mountain came crashing down on Ling Chen. The reason why Zhang Chen could become the saint child of the battle god sect was because he had comprehended the Tao of battle. Using the Tao of battle, he broke through to the sovereign lord realm and condensed the battle god source body. Therefore, although Zhang Chen was only at the second heavenly layer of the high immortal realm, even a third heavenly layer of the high immortal realm might not be a match for him. The god of war source body was one of the most powerful source bodies. After condensing the battle god source body, not only did Zhang Chen possess powerful combat instincts, he could also comprehend all kinds of secret arts and innate techniques to perfection. On the battlefield, he was an omnipotent battle god. The King War Sovereign Fist was a supreme fist technique created by an immortal emperor of the battle god sect. It was ferocious and domineering, and contained an aura that could destroy the heavens and earth. When Zhang Chen executed the King War Sovereign Fist, his entire body became resplendent and dazzling. Although it looked like a single punch, in reality, it was as if there were tens of thousands of punches thrown out. Kill! Ling Xiao roared. Zhang Chen's strength made him feel quite a bit of pressure. Along the way, in terms of physical strength alone, Ling Xiao could be said to be invincible among his peers, sweeping through all the experts in the all heavens. However, when facing Zhang Chen, he felt a sense of familiarity from the depths of his bloodline. At the same time, an incomparably powerful battle intent surged in him. Ling Xiao had his own pride. He wasn't afraid of anyone in terms of physical strength, even if Zhang Chen was 2 realms higher than him. Rumble. Ling Xiao's body emitted a purple glow, emitting an inextinguishable light. He struck out in the air, as if he could extract energy from the chaos. In the void, fist imprints shattered one after another. The battle between Ling Xiao and Zhang Chen had reached the most intense stage in an instant. Everyone's expression was incomparably shocked. They saw a purple sun and a golden sun colliding continuously on the ancient battle platform. Every time they collided, millions of rays of light would be released. Even the void seemed to distort slightly. That was pure physical strength. It wasn't a divine ability, nor was it a great Tao law. Instead, it was the ultimate form of resistance within the divine treasure of the physical body. Madam, this Lei Ling is only an immortal venerable. Moreover, he is from the immortal race. How could he have such a strong physical body? The battle god sect's supreme elder Zhan Feng also revealed a trace of shock in his eyes. From the powerful battle prowess he had displayed, Ling Zhao's physical body was actually on par with Zhang Chen's. Perhaps he obtained some kind of opportunity and cultivated some kind of powerful body refining technique. Madame Fuyao smiled faintly and said noncommittally. There was a strange light in her eyes. Her gaze landed on Ling Xiao, as if she could see through everything in his body. The current Lei Ling's combat power had become too terrifying. Even Madame Fuyao was shocked. However, he didn't probe any further, as if he wanted to verify something. As for the other holy sons and holy daughters, they were originally arrogant and indifferent. They felt that there was no suspense in this battle. But now, after witnessing the scene of the battle on the ancient battle platform, their expressions changed. A mere immortal venerable was actually able to fight Zhang Chen to such an extent. The contempt they had for Ling Xiao disappeared, and they became incomparably solemn. Battle the heavens, battle the earth, battle the heavens. Kill. Zhang Chen roared in a low voice. Battle intent surged in his eyes, and the blood in his body seemed to have completely boiled. He threw out 3 punches in the air. Each punch was boundless and ancient, as if they were the fists of the fiend gods from the immemorial times. In an instant, they merged into one in the void. The void trembled, and billions of stars shook violently. The 3 punches landed, as if they had sealed Ling Zhao's entire body. A vast and mighty force erupted, wanting to completely annihilate him. Zhang Chen is starting to get serious. The battle god source body has completely erupted. This punch can defeat a 3rd heavenly layer immortal monarch realm expert. Zhang Feng's eyes flashed as he said slowly. He can defeat a 3rd heavenly layer immortal monarch realm expert, but I'm afraid he might not be able to defeat Lei Ling. Madame Fuyao smiled faintly. She was getting more and more confident in Ling Xiao. The scene in front of Ling Xiao didn't seem to be favorable to him. The space around Ling Xiao seemed to be controlled by Zhang Chen. The surging fist intent was like a great river, forming a terrifying storm that enveloped Ling Xiao. That ancient punch actually turned into a physical entity, forming an immemorial divine mountain that was billions of miles tall, and pressed down on Ling Xiao. Open for me. The light in Ling Xiao's eyes blazed. He roared and punched out with both his fists. In an instant, 2 beams of light that pierced through the heavens, and the earth bloomed. Ling Zhao's body was surrounded by an inextinguishable light. He lifted up the immemorial divine mountain, and his entire body began to expand rapidly. Hong Long Long. An incomparably vast power erupted from Ling Zhao's body. It was as if billions of resplendent suns were blooming at the same time. Ling Zhao's body expanded in the void. 10 zhang. 100 zhang. 1,000 zhang. 100 zhang. In the end, Ling Xiao turned into a giant that was 1,000,000 zhang tall. His head was the heavens, and his feet were on the earth. His arms were like heavenly pillars that lifted the immemorial divine mountain. Kacha! Ling Zhao's arms struck across the sky, and the immemorial divine mountain exploded with a loud bang. Heavenly Law Embodiment Technique? You want to compete with the Heavenly Law Embodiment Technique? You're overestimating yourself. Although Zhang Chen was a little shocked, he didn't expect Ling Zhao's body to expand to this extent. However, he still sneered and charged towards Ling Xiao. Hong! Devour! Zhang Chen's body also began to expand in the void. He activated the God of War's source body, and the pores all over his body seemed to be able to absorb the energy from the heavens and the earth. He continuously devoured the source strength, and his body also became a million zhang tall giant in an instant. Hong! 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 The 2,000,000 zhang tall giants fought fiercely. It was as if the ancient gods and demons had descended to the earth. Every strike was enough to destroy the heavens and earth. The earth caved in, the rivers flowed in reverse, and the sun, moon, and stars fell one after another. In the blink of an eye, they had fought for over 1,000 rounds. Every collision was like a falling star, and an immeasurable divine light storm erupted. Ha ha! This feels great! Ling Xiao laughed loudly, and the battle intent in his eyes grew stronger. The blood in his body was boiling, and Ling Xiao realized that the God clan mark that had been dormant in his mind seemed to be moving. It began to emit an ancient and boundless aura. Chapter 2973. Under the stimulation of that aura, Ling Xiao's body became even more solid and immortal. The surface of his skin was like a crystal, sparkling and translucent. Every particle in his body seemed to have been opened by primal chaos, forming an ancient divine kingdom. He felt that his primordial immortal body seemed to be evolving, causing his body to slowly strengthen. This is, the god race is devouring. The seal is strengthening my primordial immortal body? Ling Xiao's heart trembled. He was both surprised and happy. He didn't know why such a change had occurred. In the god world, no one could compete with Ling Xiao's body. Once the primordial immortal body was activated, not to mention experts of the same level, even experts a few levels higher than Ling Xiao could not compare to him in terms of physical strength. What Ling Xiao loved the most was the feeling of fists hitting flesh. It was incomparably exciting and satisfying. This battle with Zhang Chen had allowed him to regain that feeling of being able to fight to his heart's content. Both he and Zhang Chen had opened their body divine treasures, forming a small universe in their bodies. His primordial immortal body, as well as Zhang Chen's airy source body, was a unique path of physical evolution. Moreover, he did not expect that the battle with Zhang Chen would activate the god race mark and start to refine his primordial immortal body. His physical aura is still strengthening? Is he still an immortal? I feel that even us descendants of the god race are not as good as him. He's more like an immortal than us. Zhang Feng's expression changed slightly, his eyes filled with disbelief. The fact that Ling Xiao was able to fight with Zhang Chen had already shocked everyone. However, they did not expect that at such a crucial moment, Ling Xiao's body was still strengthening, and his aura was soaring. The balance between the two of them, who were originally evenly matched, was gradually being broken. He has an immortal root, so of course he's an immortal. However, an immortal can become an immortal. Madame Fuyao said slowly, a thoughtful look in her eyes. Many experts from the 6 great divine sects were shocked by the battle between Ling Xiao and Zhang Chen. If they had not clearly sensed the existence of an immortal root in Ling Xiao's body and the absence of a god bone, they would have thought that Ling Xiao was an immortal. For the immortal race to have such a peerless genius, it's a disaster for our god race. How about Blood Shadow, the great elder of the sect of the blood god, murmured to himself. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. If it was before, they did not put Lei Ling in their eyes. But now, not only did they not look down on him, their hearts were filled with fear. Lei Ling was already so powerful at the immortal reverent realm. Once Lei Ling broke through to the immortal monarch realm, to what extent would his strength soar to? One had to know that Zhang Chen was already one of the most outstanding geniuses of the 6 great divine sects. The fact that the immortal clan had produced such a monster cast a shadow over their hearts. He's still getting stronger? Zhang Chen, who was currently engaged in battle with Ling Xiao, felt this even more deeply. Now he actually felt a strong pressure from Ling Xiao's body. Even though he had unleashed his strongest source body of the god of battle, he still could not do anything to Ling Xiao. On the other hand, Ling Xiao's physical body was becoming more and more terrifying. Every strike of his contained an ancient power that surged into Zhang Chen's body, causing Zhang Chen's body to tremble. His blood and qi churned as if he had been severely injured. This discovery caused him to be both shocked and furious. A mere immortal clan member had actually defeated him in terms of physical strength. This made him feel a burning sensation on his face, as if he had been ruthlessly slapped in the face. All-sided annihilation fist. Zhanchen roared angrily. The aura around him instantly became even more terrifying. A strange aura of the great Tao origin flowed around his body, making him seem like the god of battle. He controlled the origin of battle, and every move he made contained the vast power of heaven and earth. The all-sided annihilation fist was the strongest emperor technique. When combined with his source body of the god of battle, he could unleash the most powerful combat strength. It was also the strongest power that he could unleash now. What a pity! A trace of pity appeared in Ling Xiao's eyes. He did not expect that he would cause Zhanchen to feel so much pressure. Zhanchen had given up on using his physical body to fight against him, and had instead used a supreme emperor technique to trigger the great Tao origin. Originally, during the battle with Zhanchen, the god clan mark in Ling Xiao's sea of consciousness was triggered. An ancient and mysterious aura emerged from it, as if it was transforming Ling Xiao's physical body. However, Ling Xiao could vaguely sense that Zhanchen's bloodline was not pure enough, and the pressure it gave him was not strong enough. This caused the transformation of the god clan mark to be very slow. When Zhanchen triggered the great Tao origin, the god clan mark suddenly became quiet, and the mysterious aura also disappeared. Zhanchen, let's settle this with one move. Ling Xiao smiled. A bright light flashed in his palm, and the immortal culling sword appeared in his hand. Aren't the strongest weapons of the immortal clan the various immortal weapons? Come, let me see your strongest power. Zhanchen saw Ling Xiao take out an ancient sword and sneered in his heart. It seemed that this Lei Ling was afraid. He did not sense any extreme emperor aura from the immortal culling sword, so he did not care. He used the all-sided annihilation fist and attacked Ling Xiao. It's time to end this. Ling Xiao said with a smile. Clang. Ling Xiao used the great immortal culling technique, and a terrifying slaughter sword intent surged around him. His aura became extremely sharp. The immortal culling sword seemed to have completely awakened, and it let out a clang. In an instant, millions of sword lights bloomed in the void, and it was extremely bright. Zhanchen has lost. He's too stupid. He actually dared to fight with Master, and he even promised Master that he could use a weapon? What a pitiful child. Heaven-devouring rat said with a sympathetic expression. Why did Mr. Lei Ling take out the immortal culling sword? I think he can win even without using the immortal culling sword. Xie Wushuang frowned slightly, and she did not understand. Ling Xiao's physical body was too strong, and even she was in awe. She felt that Ling Xiao should be able to defeat Zhanchen. However, she felt that Ling Xiao's use of the immortal culling sword was unnecessary. However, she and Heaven-devouring rat both understood that the moment the immortal culling sword was taken out, Zhanchen's fate was sealed. This pitiful child was bound to lose. Extreme Emperor Weapon. Lei Ling, you're despicable. Zhanchen's face changed, and his eyes were filled with shock and anger as he roared. The immortal culling sword was fully activated by Ling Xiao, and the extreme emperor aura could no longer be concealed. It burst out mightily. Zhanchen did not expect Lei Ling to have an extreme emperor weapon, and he even used it in such a battle. He was too shameless. Zhanchen could even feel the sword qi descending from the sky. That destructive sword domain caused his entire body to turn cold, and he felt an extreme sense of danger. Even his divine battle origin body could not resist the terrifying murderous sword intent. Rumble. Ling Xiao did not care about Zhanchen. The sword intent in the sky surged and fell from the sky, drowning Zhanchen. Zhanchen understood that Ling Xiao had gone easy on him. Although he looked miserable, he had only suffered some superficial wounds. He hadn't suffered any serious injuries. I lost. Zhanchen looked at Ling Xiao with a complicated gaze. When Ling Xiao took out the immortal culling sword, he was incomparably furious. He thought that Ling Xiao was despicable and shameless to use an extreme Dao monarch weapon to launch a sneak attack on him. But now there was no anger, only a deep sense of defeat. He understood that even if Ling Xiao didn't use the immortal culling sword, he was likely to lose this battle. Ling Xiao was merely an immortal honorable, but his physical body was extremely terrifying. It was even stronger than his source body of the god of battle. Revealing the immortal culling sword had only sped up the process of his defeat. Moreover, Ling Xiao had gone easy on him. "Thank you for letting me win." Ling Xiao smiled faintly. Although Zhang Chen was extremely arrogant and seemed to have his nose in the air, Ling Xiao found it difficult to have any ill feelings towards him. Perhaps it was the unique bloodline aura that made him feel extremely close to him. Moreover, he could feel that Zhang Chen wasn't a bad person. He was just too arrogant because he had been worshipped by many. "Lei Ling, I apologize for my ignorance earlier. Looks like I'm the frog at the bottom of the well. Although you're only an immortal honorable, you're really strong. Although I don't understand why you took out an extreme Dao Monarch weapon, I'm sincerely convinced of your victory." Zhang Chen said seriously. "You're very strong too. If I didn't take out the immortal culling sword, it wouldn't have been easy to defeat you." Ling Xiao said slowly. After all, he hadn't broken through to the immortal emperor realm. Although he was strong, if he really fought with Zhang Chen, it wouldn't have been easy for him to win in a short period of time. Moreover, he might have exposed himself. He took out the immortal culling sword and ended the battle quickly in order to hide himself. Although his physical body was so strong that it made everyone suspicious. "I, Zhang Chen, am a man of my words. I'll give up my pursuit of the Yunqi Saintess. You're worthy of her. It's a pity that you're from the immortal race. If you're from the god race, we can be brothers." Zhang Chen sighed softly. Then he looked deeply at Ling Xiao and turned to leave the ancient battle platform. Sensing that Zhang Chen wasn't severely injured, Zhang Feng heaved a sigh of relief. However, everyone was still attracted by the immortal culling sword in Ling Xiao's hand. Why was the immortal culling sword, one of the 4 heavenly immortal swords, in Ling Xiao's hands? Everyone might not know, but a few days ago, in the battle at the immortal ancient city, Lei Ling used the immortal culling sword to shine. Not only did he destroy the Shi family, he even killed 2 of the 7 Big Dipper immortal dukes from the All-Kate immortal sect. Madame Fuyao smiled faintly and told everyone about the battle at the immortal ancient city. The people from the 5 major immortal sects hadn't received any news about the immortal ancient city. Hearing Madame Fuyao's story, everyone was shocked and their eyes were filled with disbelief. At the same time, the saints and saintesses looked at Ling Xiao with jealousy. This Lei Ling was too lucky. He had casually opened an immortal stone and obtained the Imperial Jade Inheritance. Moreover, the Imperial Jade Inheritance contained the great immortal culling art. Who would have thought that the core of the immortal coalescence emperor formation would be suppressing the immortal culling sword? Ling Xiao calmly used the great immortal culling art to control the immortal culling sword. The immortal culling sword. Back then, the great immortal culling lord obtained the great immortal culling art and became a peerless immortal lord. However, he never found the immortal culling sword. Who would have thought that it would fall into Lei Ling's hands? Chen Kaitai sighed softly. As the Grand Elder of the Divine Light religion, he was very familiar with the 4 heavenly immortal swords. Back then, the Divine Light religion had obtained the great immortal culling art, but it was lost. Even the great immortal lord had some ties with the Divine Light religion. This Lei Ling's talent is too shocking. I'm afraid that not many of the saints and saintesses of the 9 major immortal sects can compare to him. But he's from the immortal tribe. What a pity. Grand Elder Xiong Wu of the Divine Destruction sect sighed. Yes, what a pity. If he was from the divine tribe, I would have thought that he was the son of God. Zhao Yin shook his head and said. They had mixed feelings about Ling Xiao's strength. Although the enmity between the divine tribe and the immortal tribe had gradually faded with the passage of time, it was still deeply engraved in their hearts. The divine tribe was weak to begin with, and there wasn't even a single pure-blooded divine tribe member. Strictly speaking, they could only be considered descendants of the divine tribe. Ling Xiao, the genius of the immortal tribe, made them feel a lot of pressure. Chapter 2975. After the battle with Zhang Chen, Ling Xiao chose to go into seclusion. Ling Xiao had gained a lot from this battle. The most important thing was the effect of the God Clan mark on his physical body. Ling Xiao had never thought that the God Clan mark could unlock his physical body's divine treasures. When Ling Xiao had obtained the God Clan mark in the ancient land of chaos, he had only discovered that the God Clan mark contained the fate of the God Clan. However, he was not clear about the other uses of the God Clan mark. After coming to the immortal world this time, Ling Xiao discovered the wonderful use of the God Clan mark. Not only did the God Clan mark contain the fate of the God Clan, but it could also absorb immortal matter and strengthen his physical body. Could it be that I have something to do with the God Clan? Ling Xiao thought to himself. When he was in seclusion, he was studying the God Clan mark and the changes it had brought to his physical body. This change was not an increase in cultivation, but the opening of his physical body's divine treasures, which made his primordial immortal body undergo some kind of mysterious evolution. Although Ling Xiao's cultivation was only at the immortal venerable realm, in a sense there was no difference between him and an imperial emperor. While Ling Xiao was in seclusion, a few uninvited guests came to the old god cult. The heaven-piercing immortal sect actually came to the old god cult? What a rare guest! In the ancient god temple, Madame Fuyao received the guests from the heaven-piercing immortal sect. This time, there were 2 immortal monarchs from the heaven-piercing immortal sect. They were the Supreme Elder Ningyuan and the Saint Jianxin. Ningyuan's hair and beard were all white, and he looked hale and hearty. He wore a Taoist robe and had a youthful face and white hair. He had a sage-like demeanor and a faint smile on his face. His eyes were wise and deep. On the other hand, the Saint Jianxin was like an unsheathed immortal sword, blooming with peerless light. His entire body was enveloped by a vast sword essence. He looked like a young man with a slender figure and a handsome face. However, his eyes were sharp, as if there was a blazing sword radiance shooting out from them that could pierce through the void. His expression was very indifferent, as if he didn't care about anything at all. He had a kind of arrogance that was high above everyone else. Even if a peerless beauty like Madame Fuyao was in front of him, he was not moved at all. "Madam, this old master is here to make a deal with the old god cult," Ningyuan said with a smile. "Do business with my ancient god cult? That's really strange. May I know what you're interested in the ancient god cult?" Madame Fuyao said with a faint smile. She was very clear about the purpose of the heavenly reaching immortal sect's visit. Immortal slaughtering sword. Only the great immortal culling art and the immortal culling sword could make the sky-piercing immortal sect so anxious. "Madam, a straightforward person does not resort to insinuations. I heard that Lei Ling of the old god cult has obtained the immortal culling sword. I'm sure Madam also knows that our heaven-reaching immortal gate is the orthodoxy of the heaven-reaching great emperor. The immortal culling sword is a treasure of our heaven-reaching immortal gate, so we want to exchange it back," Ningyuan said with a smile. "Immortal slaughtering sword? That's right, the immortal slaughtering sword was indeed in Lei Ling's hands. However, Lei Ling isn't a member of the ancient god cult. I don't have the right to make decisions for him. However, I am very interested to hear what kind of price the heavenly connecting immortal sect is willing to pay," Madame Fuyao said with a faint smile. "Madam, I heard that Lei Ling is about to become the Taoist companion of the Cloudy Stream Saintess. If the immortal culling sword falls into his hands, isn't that the same as falling into the hands of the old god cult? Don't worry, our heaven-reaching immortal sect is very sincere this time. The price we will pay will definitely make it impossible for Madam to refuse," Ningyuan said leisurely. "Oh, what is it?" Madame Fuyao asked with interest. "Fragments of the divine cauldron," Ningyuan said with a faint smile. "Fragments of the divine cauldron? How many pieces?" Madame Fuyao's body trembled, and her expression turned solemn. The cauldron of creation was the divine clan's treasure of destiny. It was also a chaos treasure. However, there was an incomparably tragic war in the ancient times, and it was shattered into countless pieces. For countless years, although the 6 major divine sects had tried their best to collect it, they had only obtained a portion of the divine cauldron fragments. A portion had fallen into the hands of the 9 major immortal sects. If Ningyuan had used other treasures to exchange for the immortal culling sword, Madame Fuyao would definitely not have agreed. However, the fact that the Heavenly Connecting Immortal sect was willing to take out the Divine Cauldron fragments made her hesitate. 32 pieces. Ning Yuan said a number that shocked even Madame Fuyao. That many? Madame Fuyao exclaimed in surprise. The cauldron of creation was shattered, but according to the 6 major divine sects' many years of research, they had discovered a total of 108 fragments. The total number of fragments in the hands of the 6 major divine sects was only slightly more than 60. Ning Yuan said 32 fragments as soon as he opened his mouth. Madame Fuyao was completely unsettled. Madam, I've said before that the Heavenly Connecting Immortal sect is very sincere. I know the significance of the Divine Cauldron fragments to you. So the Heavenly Connecting Immortal sect paid a great price to exchange for all the fragments from the other 8 immortal sects. Now all 32 fragments of the Divine Cauldron are in the hands of the Heavenly Connecting Immortal sect. Ning Yuan smiled faintly. A light flashed in his palm, and a piece of jade that was neither gold nor jade appeared. It looked like porcelain, but it emitted an ancient and mysterious light. There was no doubt that it was a fragment of the Divine Cauldron. He knew that Madame Fuyao would not be able to refuse. For the 6 major divine sects, they considered themselves descendants of the divine clan. Collecting the Divine Cauldron fragments and reforming the cauldron of creation was the mission of every descendant of the divine clan. There was even a saying among the 6 major divine sects. When the Divine Cauldron appeared, the divine clan would prosper. So after seeing the Divine Cauldron fragments, the people of the divine clan were the craziest. Elder Ning Yuan, you've really given me a bargaining chip that I can't refuse. 32 fragments of the Divine Cauldron. The Heavenly Connecting Immortal sect is indeed very sincere. However, aren't you afraid that I'll keep you here and snatch it away? 32 fragments of the Divine Cauldron. I'm very tempted. Madame Fuyao sighed softly. Snatch it away? Madam, since I dared to come, I naturally believe that Madam would not do such a thing. Moreover, I only have this fragment of the Divine Cauldron, the rest are in the sect. But as long as Madam agrees, the 32 fragments of the Divine Cauldron can immediately be handed over to Madam. Ning Yuan smiled faintly. Madame Fuyao looked deeply at Ning Yuan, was silent for a moment, and then said, Elder Ning, this is a serious matter. I can't make the decision alone. I'll call Lei Ling over and listen to his opinion. All right. Ning Yuan agreed. Madame Fuyao immediately sent someone to the place where Ling Xiao was in seclusion and invited him to the ancient shrine. Ling Xiao's seclusion this time was only to digest what he had obtained from the Divine Clan seal. And it wasn't considered a life and death seclusion, so he came out quickly and followed the servant to the ancient shrine. Is he here for the immortal culling sword? Ling Xiao thought to himself, and had a plan. Heavenly Connecting Immortal sect was extremely arrogant, and was a sword cultivation sect. Their combat power was unparalleled, and their strength was ranked in the top 3 of the 9 major immortal sects. They were disdainful of the 6 major divine sects, so they had almost no interaction with the 6 major divine sects. Only the appearance of the immortal culling sword would bring them to the ancient god sect. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.